Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting of Monday, November the 10th. I wish to begin by acknowledging that the District of Sooke is located on the unceded traditional territories of both the Sooke and Shaanu nations. Council, I'll turn your attention to item 3.1, and that is the agenda for the November 10th, 2025 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Did you have something to add, Councillor? Go ahead.
I was hoping that given that we have the OCP as the last item on the meeting, that it could be moved in the agenda to a time when we're fresher. It's actually probably the most important piece of business on the meeting. And in order to make that possible, I'd love to know from our staff how long the presentations are going to take, because in the past they've taken up to 15, 20 minutes, half an hour per department. If possible, we could just table that or postpone that till the next meeting and let them go. But I'd like to consider actually doing, honestly, the most critical piece of work we have to do when we're fresh.
My only suggestion, though, is that Councillor McMath will be joining us a little bit later today virtually. And so given that this is an item that we also want every member of council to participate in, I would suggest we stay the course at this time.
Then is it possible to postpone the presentations regardless so that we have more time and it happens sooner?
I think this is all relative, and I think council can use the time effectively. So I think we can see where we are at and make a decision to reorder at the time. But at this point, the budget is also on a time schedule as well, and all the staff are here. So
all right,
my preference is to leave it as is.
And then let's hope it goes well.
Okay, well, let's manage our time wisely together then. Call the question on approval. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Report of the Chief Administrative Officer is next.
In the interest of time, nothing further to add.
Okay, thank you. And we also have your written report to follow on the consent agenda. So next up is our public question and comment period. And so for those of members of the public in attendance today, as we are moving towards a potential public hearing for 14.1, at this point, public input would be invited only on items 6 through to item 11. So do I have any members of the public here tonight that would like to comment on those items? On any of those? No? Okay, well, welcome. Thank you for joining with us tonight. We'll move on to our consent agenda. So that would be that the following items on the consent agenda be adopted by consent. Item 6.2, correspondence. 6.3, report of the Chief Administrative Officer. 6.4, the pod project introduction. 6.5, recognition, proclamation, and adornment policy and 2026 schedule.
So moved.
And yeah, so that's moved adoption or adoption, yes, by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. All those in favor then? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries unanimously. So that moves us right through to item 7, which is our report section, starting off with 7.1, our 2025 third quarter financial report, and I'll turn it over to staff for their presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do not have a presentation for the third quarter financial update, but I just do have a verbal summary of the report. The overall position, the district's operating budget remains stable for 2025, with 93% of annual revenues collected and 72% of expenditures spent by September 30th, 2025. Revenues are on track to meet or exceed targets. Property tax and sewer revenues were collected in Q2. The quarterly, I guess the tax notices go out and we collect most of our revenue at that time. Planning and development revenues are at 59% and building permits at 64.5%, largely due to the Bayshore development permits that we received earlier in the year. Building permit revenues, we do have some concerns about meeting the building permit targets just due to a slowdown in new construction. We don't anticipate a lot of new construction permits at this time of the year as housing starts to tend to slow down towards November and December. Expenditures, spending is aligned with expectations. Salary and benefits are at 73% of the annual budget. Variances are due to staffing vacancies and timing of hires. The fire services reported higher overtime costs due to the limited ability to bring in paid on-call firefighters earlier this year. That was for coverage under the previous IAFF agreement. The new agreement has been updated. We're able to backfill firefighters with paid on calls now, and that should see the overtime costs go down over the next year. RCMP is expected to finish close to budget. A reconciliation invoice was received this year for $464,000, which will offset the projected surplus for the year. So the RCMP is running right now with 12.16 members and are projected to have a surplus for their fiscal year. However, this surplus will be used to offset the reconciliation invoice that we received from them. So we are expected to finish our fiscal year like on track for them. Capital projects are nearing completion, are underway or nearing completion, including the Mamneil Creek Bridge, EV infrastructure, and park upgrades. Some projects will carry into 2026. Capital spending is at 16.5% of budget, typical for this stage and this pace of capital for municipalities. Grants, over 9 million in active grants currently and 46 million in spending in pending applications. The major projects like wastewater expansion and the multi-sport box were completed earlier this year. In conclusion, the district's operating budget is stable and well managed. Revenues are generally on track, expenditures are controlled, and the capital and grant funded projects are progressing. The report reflects a commitment to transparency and fiscal responsibility. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the report, and I may defer questions about capital to any managers who are here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Curry. I'll put the motion forward, and that is that council receive the 2025 third quarter financial operating report for information. That's moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Pearson. Would you like to comment or ask questions, Councillor St. Pierre?
No.
Okay, please turn off your microphone. Councillor Pearson.
Yes, through the chair to our finance manager. I think it's manager still. Deputy director. Okay, got it. So the fire services is a result. Can I draw the conclusion this is a result of not signing the collective agreement, the plus 30K or plus 29K? That's kind of the way you said that, and I was thinking.
So to clarify, it's not having the agreement, I guess the not in place, we weren't able to use paid on calls to cover the existing career full-time staff. So there was I believe a LOU in the previous agreement that had expired that needed to be updated. So that language was updated and corrected like upon agreement in the new collective agreement that's been settled over summer this year. So going forward, it's been corrected.
So that in the future, if the contract expires, we have the right to retain on-call firefighters once the collective agreement is expired until the signing of the next one?
I'm not sure. I may have to defer that question to Chief Kennedy here. Who knows the agreement better and in that scenario, what may happen.
So yeah, through your chair to Councillor Pearson. So within that overtime budget, a portion of it is correct with what Ben speaks to in terms of our overtime and our costs due to some of the language restrictions that we had from our collective agreement, which we've since satisfied in this new one. Part of our overtime budget is also response to multi-unit incidents where we call back career staff to help us out with long duration incidents. And then some of it's our training. Our training costs are in there as well. So that kind of blends all those costs. We should see some reductions in terms of overtime due to vacancies. We are trying to maintain 2 people at all times 24/7. And when we do that and we didn't have the option to call back and use less expensive paid on call firefighters, we were using career firefighters at overtime, and that adds up pretty fast.
Thank you for that answer. It's just, I was trying to, just in the presentation, it made reference to not signing the collective agreement, and is that sort of one of the consequences of not signing the collective agreement? That we lose the right to call on call?
Yeah, part of that. And then our letter of agreement goes to the end of 2027 for use of paid on call. Our contract expires 2026.
Okay, so I guess my next question is to our CAO and to the fire chief. Is it something to note for future planning in budget deliberations going forward that, try to keep the collective agreements on schedule if there's an impact, right? So.
Yeah, for sure. Through your worship to Council Pearson, as Chief Kennedy just stated, we made sure the current LOU goes till 2027 now to bridge that gap, because it's also contingent on when the IFF gives us notification of bargaining. So it's a complicated dance, but hopefully the extended term here of this LOU specifically will cover that off.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for really good answers.
Any comments or questions from any other councillors? Go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
Sorry, just one further quick note, and that's that thank you for the work from the Finance Department on the taxation of utility companies. It was, as you may know, part of the endorsed block as EB 61 and did get support from UBCM and did go forward. And I know that mattered to you, so at least it's at that level now.
Thank you. That's great to hear.
Okay, we've already concluded public input. I'm sorry. I just want to give my thanks. I really appreciate the grant tracking where we can see that they're all sort of itemized in here. So thank you to Finance for noting what we have applied for. Appreciate staff effort in flagging those and applying for them, and also where we are with pending and then the status overall. So it's just really good to see that and for the work that you're doing. Okay, seeing nothing else from council, I'm going to call the question on receipt. All those in favor, please. And none opposed, that's unanimous, please. We're going to move on to 7.2, and I'll go over to staff for their presentation, please.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. In the interest of time, I will try to be brief, and just wanted to set the stage and start our budget conversation with the administration departments here. And perfect. So before we begin, just wanted to clarify our service overviews for budget 2026. Let's start with a quick look at how municipal structure supports service delivery and decision-making. Our community is at the center of everything we do. Residents elect mayor and council, and their input through engagement and participation helps shape our priorities. Council sets the direction for the district. They adopt the strategic plan, endorse bylaws and policies, and approve the annual financial plan and budget. Decisions that guide all municipal work. As the Chief Administrative Officer, I lead all the departments and report directly to council. My role is to ensure council's direction is carried out effectively and to help balance expectations with the realities of limited resources and competing priorities. Each department turns council's goals into work plans and manages staff and budgets and ensures resources are used wisely to meet the community needs. And finally, our staff bring these plans to life, working every day to deliver services that keep our community safe, supported, and thriving. And just a quick snapshot, our geography, population growth, and local context all influence the level and type of services the district provides. Over the course of these service area presentations, over the next few months, council will hear from each team in the context of the services they deliver, including key performance indicators, as well as the performance pressures and capacity constraints and other challenges that impact the budget. This is just a quick snapshot of a very high-level organizational chart, just for context there. And with that, I will dive into administrative services. So administrative services provides corporate leadership, organizational support, and communication to support effective, accountable, and connected municipal operations. We do this through 3 service areas: the Office of the CAO, Human Resources, which our managers, Catherine Holder, and Communications and Community Relations, which is our manager of that is Christina Moog. Administrative services, this is just provides a bit more text on, touches on more details on each of those service areas. As you can see, we cover a wide range of services, including legislative compliance and occupational health and safety to community engagement. Personnel and budget, all delivered by a core team of 4, with activities taking place at all hours, including evenings and weekends, as is the case with meetings, events, and liaison with community organizations. The administrative service budget represents approximately 10% of the total operating budget, and which also includes council's budget, service agreements, legal, and the climate action initiatives, which are predominantly provincially funded with an 80-20 split between the province and the district. With a lean team and a broad mandate, let's look at some of what we accomplished in 2025. We didn't do that. Highlights vary from working with council on the strategic plan, then advancing implementation, supporting the community health center file, developing a new website, supporting community events, issuing media releases, to name a few, to over 200 this year. As well, some of our other achievements include modernizing district branding and shortly launching the development of a signage strategy by leveraging the Municipal Regional Destination Tax Program funds. Speaking of leveraging funds, several community-based climate action initiatives were also delivered to improve mobility this year, all predominantly provincially funded, such as the Bike Rack for Business program, which is pictured in this slide. We also refreshed our performance development program, laying the groundwork for a more intentional approach to staff training and development. Policy updates reflect our commitment to clarity, consistency, and community alignment, ensuring our frameworks evolve with the needs of the organization and the public. Building on those achievements, here's where we're looking to head next. For 2026, our focus is on building stability and readiness, both internally and externally. We're preparing the organization for a seamless council transition while equipping the community with the information they need to engage in key decisions like the borrowing referendum. Simply put, we're looking to strengthen our foundation so we can continue to lead with clarity, confidence, and connection. On the human resource fronts, initiatives continue to enhance our internal systems, improving staff development and operational resilience without increasing tax pressures. For 2026, when it comes to the communications and community relations portfolio, our focus remains on strengthening community connection, building partnerships, deepening engagement, and making progress in the areas that matter most to residents. We've heard that people want communication that's not just frequent, but also clear, visual, and meaningful. We'll continue improving how we share this information throughout tools, using tools like our new website, monthly newsletters, and visual dashboards. Nominal funding is needed to support graphic design and printing costs related to the referendum. You'll see that later on through the budget 2026 ask, coming more formally in January here. Outside of that project, we're not proposing any new discretionary expenses for communications in 2026. As well with HR functions, we're continuing leaning on technology and external funding sources to enhance service delivery efficiently in these areas. Specific to community service agreements, any request for additional funding will be brought forward to council in January for consideration. And our ongoing collaboration with the Sooke Nation will also continue, grounded in respect, partnership, and place. While budget requests from administrative services will be minimal unless council directs a service level increase into their budget, it's important to recognize the pressures that affect our resources. The role of local government keeps expanding, and it's a challenge for resources to keep up. We're managing more complex work, from intergovernmental coordination to inflation, while maintaining service levels for a growing community, even when holding steady means higher demand on existing services. To help alleviate that, cross-training and building staff capacity are essential for a resilient team. In order to have a lean organization, and as mentioned previously, this is a core focus for administrative services in 2026. As we navigate these organizational pressures, it's clear that our people are our greatest asset. Ensuring their safety, well-being, and resilience is foundational to everything we do. With that in mind, let's take a look at how human resources is advancing occupational health and safety across the organization. Occupational health and safety is all about more than compliance. It's about caring for the physical and emotional well-being of our employees. As the organization grows, ensuring consistent safety, awareness, and training and communication across all the departments remain an ongoing focus. Many of our functions are specialized or single staff positions, which creates both an opportunity and a challenge. The challenge of maintaining continuity and shared accountability, and the opportunity to strengthen collaboration and support across the organization. Through initiatives like enhanced training, expanded wellness programs, and an active joint health and safety committee, we're building a safety-first culture where employees feel supported, valued, and responsible for maintaining a healthy workplace. When our people are physically safe and emotionally supported, the entire organization becomes more resilient, resulting in fewer incidents, stronger engagement, and a workforce better equipped to serve our community. Building a safe and resilient workplace is essential, but how do we measure our progress? Let's turn to some of the key performance indicators that help us track service delivery, employee engagement, and community impact across administrative services. Just 2 slides left on my presentation here. Key indicators. So these indicators help us understand not just what we're doing, but how well we're doing it. They show where demand is growing, where engagement is strong, and where we can focus efforts to improve efficiency and impact. As we continue to build capacity, these metrics will guide smarter decisions and help us prioritize what matters most to the community. To truly understand the impact, though, most importantly, we need to listen. So we'll close out this presentation by taking a look at what we've heard from the community and how those insights are shaping our approach to moving forward. What we've heard clearly, that residents want communication that's not just frequent, but accessible, visual, and meaningful. We're responding with tools that make information easier to find and understand. We're launching a new website later this month, which will offer a streamlined sitemap, robust search functionality, and more accessible content. And that's just the beginning. Our collaboration with the Sooke Nation continues to shape how we tell our shared story, grounded in respect, partnership, and place. And ultimately, we're looking not to simply inform, but to connect. And this overview helps Council understand what it takes to maintain and evolve service delivery with a growing community and how we're preparing to do so. With that, I'll just pause on the administration department before I hand it over to the finance and IT for their overviews, if there's any questions about these.
Council, in the essence of time, I'm going to ask that you hold your questions until we've gone through all the presentations, and then we'll put a resolution on the floor. Next, please.
Thank you. Financial services, our core role is to manage public funds carefully and ethically, ensuring every dollar supports essential services and community priorities. We focus on long-term financial health, balancing current needs with future obligations. We provide clear, accurate financial reporting and maintain open communications with council and the public. All financial decisions are guided by council's strategic priorities to maximize community benefit. Ultimately, our work supports infrastructure, services, and programs that works to improve quality of life for Sooke residents. What the finance department specifically does here for Sooke is we do budgeting and financial planning. We prepare annual budgets and long-term financial plans to ensure resources are aligned with community priorities. We manage property taxes, sewer parcel billing, and other revenue sources to fund essential services. We produce clear and accurate financial reports to keep residents informed and ensure accountability. We oversee fair and cost-effective purchasing of goods and services for municipal operations. We manage borrowing and investments to support infrastructure and community development. We protect municipal assets and operations through effective risk management and insurance programs. So the property insurance and the fleet insurance are both on the desk of finance. We provide financial analysis and guidance to help council and departments make informed decisions. The personnel and budget for the Sooke finance team. We have 7 full-time staff and 2 auxiliary staff, including the director of finance, the deputy director, an accounting technician that does accounts payable, another accounting technician that does payroll, and then there's other tasks on both of those positions. We have 3 general support clerks that provide reception when you enter the building, and we have 2 auxiliary general support clerks, which provide coverage. And we have 1 senior financial advisor who works on a part-time capacity as well in supporting us remotely. Our budget is 6% of the total operating budget for Sooke. A couple of highlights in our budget. It includes the property and liability insurance totaling $260,000. And it also includes interest charges on refundable deposits. So that fluctuates, but essentially when we refund anyone their deposit from a billing deposit held, the interest that's paid is charged to our budget. So it depends on what the interest rates are at. And then audit costs of $40,000 per year is also included in our budget. Some 2025 highlights and achievements so far this year. We had a clean audit opinion for 2024, so we're pleased to report the district received a clean audit opinion. This is not new news. This reflects strong financial controls and transparency. We completed the 5-year financial plan, which was released to public. This ensures alignment with the community priorities and long-term sustainability. The property tax increase, council approved a 15.29 property tax increase for 2025. While significant, this increase supports key services and strategic priorities identified by council in the financial plan. We have worked towards completing the asset management bylaw, which was adopted, including a dedicated funding through a 2% annual increase. This is a major step towards sustainable infrastructure management. We completed the permissive tax exemption policy, so council approved the policy and bylaw earlier this year, providing clarity and consistency in how exemptions are granted and applied in the community. We completed the fees and charges bylaw, which is updated to ensure cost recovery in alignment with service delivery. We helped support the fire rescue transition. So finance supported the transition to 24/7 fire services and assisted with the IFF contract negotiations. And our role is ensuring financial impacts were managed through both processes. We are currently working on a payroll system upgrade. So we have begun transitioning to a new payroll software system, which will improve efficiency and accuracy in our payroll processing. And last, we're also working on an asset management policy update, which is an update to the policy that'll be completed before the end of the year, which will help strengthen our approach to infrastructure planning. Our planned priorities for 2026. One of our major priorities is implementing a new sewer utility rate structure after the parcel tax expires in 2026. This ensures sustainable funding for the sewer services moving forward. We'll present the 5-year financial plan to council and the community in the new year, continuing our commitment to transparency and long-term financial planning. We'll continue public engagement in budgeting. That will remain our focus. We'll build on previous efforts and make the process more accessible and informative each year. We'll play a critical role in supporting upcoming general election and referendum, ensuring financial compliance and smooth operations. We'll manage the MDRT funds, continuing support for the management of the fund, and also ensuring accountable and proper allocation. Our team will work closely with all departments to continue providing financial analysis that supports decision-making and operational efficiency. We'll continue monitoring and identifying new funding opportunities, which will be essential to maintain fiscal health and reduce reliance on property taxes. And we'll strive to maintain a clean audit opinion and strong controls in the new year. And we'll continue monitoring our financial system and processes to make improvements, including payroll and other reporting tools. And last, we'll continue cross-training and prioritizing cross-training within the department to build resilience and ensure continuity of service. Some organizational drivers that we have. Fiscal responsibility to ensure responsible stewardship of public funds through sound budgeting, fiscal planning, and reporting. Transparency and accountability, maintain clear financial information and uphold public trust through regular reports and audits. Service delivery support, regulatory compliance, align with financial resources and with department and community needs to enable effective service delivery, continued asset management support for long-term infrastructure sustainability, risk management, technology integration, community engagement, organizational capacity, and continuous improvement. Sorry, realize some of these things are a repeat of my previous slides, so I'm going to move through them a little bit quicker. Some financial pressures that we see at the district of Sooke is rising service costs, increased funding required for expanded services, included the 24/7 policing and fire rescue, higher costs for insurance and emergency dispatch services, e-com and licensing. We see that coming in the upcoming. We see that in the upcoming budget. Infrastructure demands significant capital investment needing for aging infrastructure and growth-related projects. Ongoing pressure to fund asset management through dedicated reserves as well, and increasing and continuing at 2% with the tax increase. Taxation constraints, balancing service enhancements with public tolerance for tax increases. 2025 saw a 15.29% tax increase for the average home, with similar pressures expected in 2026, but also understanding a double-digit tax increase isn't sustainable. Limited revenue diversity. We have a heavy reliance on property taxes here, and most of that being residential. Limited alternative revenue sources such as fees and grants or partnerships. Growth and development, rapid growth, driving demand for services, facilities, and infrastructure. Staffing and capacity, need for additional finance staff to manage increased workloads and complexity. And there's the risk of burnout and turnover without adequate support and succession planning. There's also pressure to modernize financial systems and improve data integration. We do have some pressure to move our financial system over. I think the expiry date is 2028, but I think we're going to hold off and hope to replace it in 2027, as it will be moving to a different system like Office 365. When that happened, we'll have the same thing with our GP Great Plans, which will move to GP 365. Some financial services key indicators. So these are just some stats from our department. We process 69 full-time employees for payroll every 2 weeks and 34 part-time staff. The budget utilization is 72% of expenses at 75. That's just a highlight from the third quarter report. Payments and invoices, we process over 3,000 invoices a year. That equals to just over 2,000 payments. So sometimes, and a lot of times, there'll be multiple invoice on one payment if it's with the same vendor. Tax administration, we collected 26.4 million taxes year to date so far. Tax deferment managed is 1.3 million or 324 properties. And customer service at the front, we've received 6,523 calls and emails sent from the finance department, over 3,000, and received over 7,000. Community context. So key points that we receive from the community through the budget outreach throughout the summer and fall. The unsustainable tax increases, the double-digit property tax increase like we've seen recently are not sustainable over the long term, and we need to find alternatives. We've heard that message throughout the survey results. We're exploring local options to reduce our dependence on residential property taxes, which currently make up the bulk of our revenue. There is strong public support for pursuing external funding and revenue sharing opportunities. This aligns with our grant strategy. Business incentives, 79% of residents support incentives to attract new business, which could help broaden our tax base. Local fees, views on raising local fees are mixed through the results, with support ranging from 38 to 49%. This suggests caution be targeted and targeted approaches with considering user fees or raising fees. Revenue generating events, 60% of residents support revenue generating events and festivals, which could provide both financial and community benefits. Modest increases for visible improvements. Most residents are willing to accept modest increase when they see tangible improvements, especially those related to safety. Affordability concerns. Affordability remains a consistent concern. We need to balance revenue needs with the cost of living pressures. Minority opposition, a small group opposes all increases, citing affordability challenges. This reinforces the need for clear communication and transparency. In short, while there's support for diversification and targeted increases, affordability concerns mean we must proceed thoughtfully and strategically. Just some department responses to some of our survey was that we recognize that the relying on heavily double-digit property tax increases is not sustainable, and we are actively exploring all alternatives. And then just revenue generation, parking fees provide steady income stream that could be reinvested in transportation, infrastructure, downtown improvements, or public safety. And that's a common solution for offsetting a tax increase in other municipalities. With all that said, I'm happy to answer any questions or wait to the end. Thank you. Sorry, that was a little wordy.
Nope, that's all good. Thank you. We will move to IT and GIS service overview.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be talking about IT and GIS. IT and GIS are an internal facing department, which means our primary customers are all the other departments within the district, staff, and council. Our job is to provide the essential tools, services, and support that let everyone else do their jobs efficiently. We're not just the just fix it guys. We actively collaborate with all departments to find and implement new technologies, streamline their processes, and ultimately help them deliver better services to the public. Our department is broken down into two main service areas, IT and GIS, and I'll go through each of them. IT, this is a nonstop 24/7 shop, which keeps the district running. User support, this is our front line. We're Michael McDonald, who is our key person here, handling all help desk tickets, emails, walk-ups, and calls from staff and council. Security and patching, this is a constant daily effort. We are always updating our computers, servers, and network to protect against the latest threats. Infrastructure security, this is the bigger picture. We are responsible for securing everything, our network, wastewater treatment plant, SCADA systems, all our servers, desktops, laptops, and mobile devices from thousands of threats we see every single day. Data management. We are currently backing up and maintaining over 15 terabytes of district data. System monitoring. Our work isn't 9 to 5. We monitor all critical infrastructure 24/7 and respond to alerts at any hour. And we also manage our complete Microsoft 365 environment. This is all your email, Teams, SharePoint, and Office apps. GIS, what their core function are. This is headed up by Mitch Bate. GIS provides the data and spatial context for almost everything we do. Data integrity. This is the core function. Leah is constantly creating, updating, and maintaining all our property and civic address information. We pull data from external agencies like the Land Title Survey and BC Assessment to ensure our data is the single source of truth. Mapping and data services. We use that data to create all the maps and data sets used by staff for planning, by council for decision making, and by the public. You've likely all used our public-facing maps on the district website. GIS builds and maintains those along with all internal maps that the staff rely on. Asset management. GIS is the home for our asset management system, which is a key district priority. Field technology. We also provide the tools and solutions that help our staff, especially in operations, capture information accurately while they're out in the field. Personnel and budget. Myself, Michael on the IT side, and Mitch and Leah and Connor on the GIS side. The IT department accounts for 3% of the total operating budget, and GIS accounts for 2%. This budget covers all of our critical software licensing and subscriptions, our hardware lifecycle management. which means replacing computers, servers, and network gear before they fail. And of course, all the dedicated security services and tools we rely on to keep the district secure. Some of our highlights in 2025. First, I'm extremely proud that we maintained 100% uptime for all critical district systems. So that means email, file servers, and key applications were always available other than for scheduled maintenance. We completed a major upgrade of our GIS software, Esri. This was a big lift, but it was crucial. It allows us to use all of the new tools, which will directly help us provide better data for decision making. Months of planning, testing, and research went into this upgrade. As most municipalities pay for Esri consultants to do this for them, Mitch was instrumental in getting us to the finish line and saving us thousands in consulting fees. As mentioned, security is a daily battle. We successfully defended against thousands of daily threats, protecting our data and infrastructure. We're also very proud of our collaboration with the operations department. We've provided many custom maps and data reports that help them with their decision making, and just as importantly, assisted them in their grant applications. We moved the entire district to multi-factor authentication. I'm assuming you've all seen this. Is the code you guys get on your phone. This has changed. This has made a massive improvement in our security to protect all our data. Couple more highlights. Created the My City portal. This allows residents to register their property tax accounts and allows them to see exactly where their taxes are going and be able to see if they have any outstanding balances on their property tax account. Further to this, in 2006, we will allow residents to receive their tax notices via the online portal, thus saving us paper and staff time. We created an online permissive tax exemption form, which was created to make it an easier process for both staff reviewing the permissive tax exemption applications, as well make it easier for organizations applying for the exemption. Also completed the Windows 11 upgrade, which is a big win, and thanks to Mikey, he got it across the finish line, making sure the district is in full support and not at risk. Uh, 2026 priorities, enhance cybersecurity and resiliency. This is not a one and done project. This is our number one ongoing priority. We must keep strengthening our security measures, our infrastructure, and our staff training to defend against threats that are constantly evolving. To complete the payroll HRIS migration, this is a key district project to monitorize our human resources and payroll systems. The IT department is a crucial partner in getting this over the finish line. Implement the new asset management system. This is a huge priority for us and the organization. We'll be rolling this out to operations to finally allow us to capture comprehensive, reliable data on all our assets and what it actually costs to maintain them. Enhance data-driven decisions. We want to be the department that provides accurate, timely data to all the departments so you can make the strategic decisions based on facts. Continue to roll out e-apply for multiple permit types, allowing the requester to keep track of permit status and pay for it online. And finally, we'll begin to leverage AI. Not talking about robots, we're talking about using smart, safe, practical AI tools to improve our internal efficiencies so we can spend less time on routine tasks and more time on high value projects. Our main drivers are the same ones driving the entire organization. We're all being pushed for more transparency, to better support service delivery, to properly manage our assets, and to manage risk. Technology is the common thread that runs through all of it. But we do have some challenges. Financial pressures, software, hardware, and subscription costs are all increasing. Staff needs more access to tools to do their jobs, not less. And this puts pressure on the budget. Limited staffing capacity. This is one of our biggest challenges. We are a small team. The service demands and sheer volume of data required to support a growing community are increasing every year. We are relying on an auxiliary position to meet our GIS and management needs, and the demand for data and from other departments is growing. And finally, cybersecurity threats. On top of that, we are managing a massive and growing number of cybersecurity threats every single day. This puts a significant strain on a small team. Just a couple key indicators here. Last year, our systems processed over 510,000 incoming emails and sent over 478,000. As I mentioned, we maintained 100% network uptime for our critical systems. Our IT team of 2 solved over 1,900 help desk issues. This is one of my favorites. Our security tools analyzed almost 78 million events on our devices to look for threats. This is the digital noise that we have to filter through every day to find the real dangers. GIS department produced 33 legal plans processed 33 legal plans and created over 100 new civic addresses. And that's all I have. Like I said, if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much to our staff for the presentations today and for also having this to us in advance. So we'll start with the first motion, and that is that council receive the service level overview reports and presentations for information. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Questions and comments, Councillor St. Pierre? Nope. Okay, Councillor Bateman.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, the 3 of you, for those reports. And I think there's 16 employees in total in these three areas. I'm curious. I say that because of this. I see repeatedly in each report we're stretched. We're limited staffing capacity. We are serving more people with the same resources. So I'm curious about the long-term workforce plan that you will be introducing. Can you tell me some details about that? What is the long-term that you're referring to? And tell us more.
Through your worship, to Councillor Bateman, I'll get Catherine Holder, our manager of HR, to talk about that just briefly here.
Good evening, through Mayor to Council. The long-term workforce plan will focus on overall talent management. So really that incorporates everything from our foundational pieces of Indigenous cultural safety at the foundation, with learning and development as well, and staffing, but then it goes all the way through from recruitment and retention through to onboarding, learning and development, and supporting staff, and then enabling them to do their jobs better, essentially, so that they are being efficient and providing the services to the public that they're supposed to. So that will be the focus on it'll be a 3 to 5 year plan. We're still ironing out those details, but at least minimum 3. And then it will also have key priorities and goals, which we're working through right now. So I believe we'll be presenting that in January to you in more detail.
Okay. And I assume we'll see an aspirational organizational chart for 5 years out. Would that be part of the plan?
Yes, it will. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's see. Under financial services, a couple of questions. So I see the comment, growing demand for transparency and public involvement in budgeting. So given where we are today, we have the budget, the annual budget public survey, we have open houses, the What We Heard report. I guess my question is, given all we are doing, where's the limit? When do we say, okay, this is sufficient? This is in fact a best practice we're currently operating at. So, yeah.
Through your worship, Councillor Bateman, just sorry, one thought popped in my head. For sure, one avenue I think we can explore more will be with the new website, the functionality on the website for members of the public to go on and search for something, potentially eventually have budget actual reports on there. It's a fine line because things change and journal entries and things. But anyways, that to me is one area for sure that we can expand and provide better customer service on, is just having a more functional, easier to navigate website that will have a bunch of this information at their fingertips, not just waiting for a council meeting or one of the market sessions.
Very good answer. Thank you. I was curious about deferred taxes, and my one frustration I have here with the metrics is that we're only seeing them for this year and we're not seeing comparison metrics. So my question was around deferred taxes, 324 properties this year. Is that consistent or notably different or an increase given affordability issues out there?
That it has been going up each year. I do have the stats on my desktop somewhere. I could come back in a question or two and answer that. But the deferments, we do get more applications each year. So there is a bigger uptake on it especially, I think there was a bigger increase a couple of years ago when there was just more news and people understanding and more education about it. And it hasn't been growing as much as it did a few years ago, but we still do have more applications each year.
And finally, let's just dive into the public seems fine with tax increases, perhaps not double digit, as you've said here, they're not sustainable, but things that are visible or safety related. So please just expand on that a little bit. If there's any, maybe you've said all you need to say on the subject.
I think I'm gonna defer the question to Christina, who can divulge a little more.
Through the mayor, thank you for your question, Councillor Bateman. It's not forward facing, and I think specific to some of the safety items, in particular with fire services as one example. You also have the fire underwriters survey. So you're either paying for a fire department or your insurance rates are going up. So as one example, so people are seeing that direct return in response. And if we go back honestly to, Maslow's hierarchy of needs and safety being foundational, I think that's something cornerstone we're hearing year after year from the community. As I mentioned in the budget, what we heard report, we have seen that sort of taper off. I'd say our plateau rather, in the sense of reaching 24/7 service levels in both police and fire, and then that priority shifting from the health and well-being aspect of safety.
Other questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Pearson.
There it is right there behind my iPad. Thank you, Chair. So through the CAO, the Climate Action Plan, you mentioned it's 80% funded by the province and 20% by us. Is that correct? So what happens if the province pulled that back? What's the annual cost of that Climate Action Plan? First of all, and I will know the numbers, but.
Thank you for the question. So right now the split is 17,000 that we pay and 135 for the province. A lot of the projects we've been doing have been core investments that don't have ongoing operating costs. So we've been specifically targeting long-standing investments such as the crosswalk enhancements, the speed reader boards, the Bike Rack for Business programs, the EV charging stations, et cetera. So it's really leveraging those funds for the greater community benefit so that those aren't ongoing or future costs that the district would have to incur. So we're really seeing that infrastructure now through that third-party funding. So to more directly answer your question, should those funds dry up, for lack of better words, essentially we don't have the need anymore. So we've just truly maximized the benefit of those provincial funds.
Great answer. Thank you. That's what I was hoping to hear. Second question to admin services. You talked about the LJOS committees, workplace safety committees. Are you tracking that with KPIs on like lost time accidents? Have we got a measurement in there? Because safe workplace is a healthy workplace.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Pearson, that's definitely something we're looking to do more of is the JOSH. That's a big achievement for the district, is like we were barely meeting our requirements back in the day. So we've really put a big effort on getting that back up and running and doing the legislative requirements and then going above and beyond. So for sure into 2026, that's something that the committee will start looking at as key performance indicators.
Perfect. Thank you. Through the chair, I have a couple more questions and somebody else was okay. So this is to the Deputy Director of Finance. Yeah, I got that right. Through the chair. It's a question in general, and I'm not sure about the answer, but reserve funds. We have reserve funds sitting there in long-term, like not being used, just building up over time. Are we allowed to invest those in the market?
Yeah, everything is invested. So if you see our total say our total reserve balance is like 11 million between all the funds we have, including any grants we're holding when we're not utilizing the funds, that's all invested. So we have a money market fund with MFA, so Municipal Finance Authority. And we just keep the essentially the amount of operating funds that we need to pay the bills and keep the lights on, and the rest of it's invested. So we earn like almost $1 million a year in interest on our investments, and we're always looking to diversify and change. Since Rose came on, she added a new account, so we've just changed one of our investment strategies as well, just to go with another stable high interest account. So we move funds between all of them quite commonly. Actually, a few of the councillors here have to sign off on those forms whenever we do move funds. So they're more, they have more knowledge of how often that we're doing it.
Well, thank you. Good answer.
And maybe just add as well, we do the same thing after tax time in July when we collect a bunch of taxes. A big portion of that funds is immediately invested. And then monthly, as we need it, we'll draw the money and replenish the operating account.
Thank you. And through to the director or the deputy director of finance, talked about MRDT. One of your new responsibilities will be managing the MRDT. Are any additional resources going to be required to manage the MRDT?
We won't be managing it. I may ask
Support.
It's great we'll be supporting it, but I was more speaking to the oversight, the fiscal oversight, and how those funds will flow through to our financial statements will be on our desk to manage and finance. But that I believe we have another plan in place for the MDRT management of the funds, which I'm not aware of yet.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Pearson, just adding on to what Mr. Curry's saying. Yeah, finance is involved in just strictly the managing of the money and separately reporting it and ensuring that. Ms. Scott, our Community Economic Development Officer, will be providing council an update on exactly what the MRDT means for the district during her presentation. So 100% there will be some sort of impact because we can't take on a new service without any impact. We're just flushing out what exactly that looks like. So we don't know today.
And I have I have two more questions. And this is also through to the deputy director of finance. If like recent news, two reports in the favor of the district came out against ECOM. If that ECOM gets paid by the province, which is going to be hopefully, fingers crossed, will that be a direct savings in our overall taxes?
Yes, absolutely. Depending on how, if you would want to offset a future increase with it, yeah, absolutely. It would be directly related to our property taxes.
Let's hope it comes true. And last was for our director of IT and GIS. Just a question. I'm asking everybody questions.
Speak more into it.
So my question is, with all the updates on cybersecurity and the risks and the threats that are, coming in like thousands a day, is there a best practices that the province would be protecting municipalities? Because there's got to be hundreds of us all suffering the same thing. Is there a bigger government organization that we can go to for help, or are you doing it all on your own?
Well, yeah, we mainly do it on our own, but there is actually the federal government, I forget what the acronym is, but they actually support or the municipals or all government agencies, and they kind of watch out for threats hitting local governments, provincial governments, and they alert us if anything's coming, hitting our networks, anything. And it's actually happened a couple of times. We've got alerted from them and been tipped off that there was threats against us, and we nipped it in the bud pretty quick. So yeah, so there's other people looking out for us, but best practices, we do rely, like all the local municipalities in the Southern Island, we all get together quarterly and we all talk about the best practices, security, and what we're doing, what they're doing. So yeah, we do get together.
Thank you. And thank everyone for those answers.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
Just to go, this one is also for IT. One of the things I became aware of during UBCM as well was actually the work that Kelowna has been doing towards using AI in basically, I guess, their planning department, so on and so forth. I was curious as to whether or not the 2026 work plan was really to explore that sort of thing in terms of the usage of AI.
Yes, they have made that public, and they allowed other municipalities to download their playbook of how they're doing it. But they're using doing it in Microsoft Azure, which is in the cloud, and the sheer cost of that, we couldn't afford to do what they're doing. But there's other ways that we could implement AI into our planning process that's a lot cheaper, that we're always investigating and looking into and researching. So,
Councillor Haldane.
Yes, thank you. Most of the stuff's been answered that I was going to ask about, but the one thing that I noticed on the community context component, it says affordability concerns remain a consistent theme. And given that it talks under revenue generation of parking fees provide a steady income stream that can be invested in transportation infrastructure, downtown improvements, or public safety. But really the only properties we own other than a boat launch is parks. Would we be thinking of charging people to go to the park?
No, I think the intent of the comment is, and this is seen in a lot of communities that have a lot of tourists that come through and use the features, similar to like the potholes where you have the parking, the fees added, and locals get a season pass, which is much cheaper than a daily rate. It's one way the municipality can actually capture the tourism dollars and have people help pay for some of that infrastructure instead of it only being paid for by the taxpayers. So something to consider at parking locations that are for tourist spots that are busy. I know a lot of municipalities are considering it. So say for Tofino, for example, has added it to all their beaches, and it's generating a lot of revenue that can go back to the infrastructure. And as a result, you've seen the additional washrooms added and upgraded, and paved parking and paved roads into those spots as well. So, and it's all funded by those fees, and that's collecting the tourism dollars and those people using the parks and then now paying for them.
Thank you.
The district owns the gateway parking lot at the Sooke Potholes Park. Okay, I just want to thank staff for your presentations and for all the information and all those behind that contributed to the reports and for the work that you're doing. So on that, I will call the question, please, on receipt. All those in favor, please. That's carried unanimously. The next part of this, I didn't move the other part. Can we go back to that screen, please? You're very, very fast. That is that council have staff bring forward to the budget 2026 deliberations any financial impacts arising from the service level discussions. It's moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing all in favor, and that's carried unanimously. Thank you. The next up is 7.3. And that is that council provides staff with direction regarding correspondence to the Ministry of Transportation and Transit on the beautification of the Sooke River Bridge as identified by the Community Economic Development Committee. Do we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. So go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
Okay, I'd like to immediately move option 2 in the staff report here. Is that an appropriate process?
Yes, that is. So the direction, maybe an amendment would be to add option 2, that council directs staff to write to the ministry. The general approach. So this is the main motion. The secondary one on this would be an amendment to add option 1, general approach.
No, option 2.
Oh, sorry, option 2. Okay, option 2, expanded scope, CEDC recommendation And that is that council directs staff to write a letter to the Ministry of Transportation and Transit acknowledging the ministry's responsibility for the Sooke River Bridge and encouraging the ministry to paint to renew the Sooke River Bridge, identifying the project as a meaningful opportunity to support truth and reconciliation should the Sauk Nation wish to participate, and offering the district support for the project within the scope of available resources to be determined should there be interest in the project proceeding. So that is an amendment moved by Councillor Bateman. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Yes, there is. Seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. So on the amendment, please.
Okay, so this arose out of the Community Economic Development Committee. We made the motion originally back in late July. On September 3rd, staff brought forward and the committee discussed this option B or option 2. It effectively is a simple advocacy letter that can be sent to the ministry, filed and utilized in the future as we continue our MOU relationship. It is has no direct financial implications to the district at this stage. The letter has essentially already been written in the phrasing of the option 2 itself. And having experienced firsthand the speed with which district staff can turn around these kind of letters, I know that you are under immense strain and you're working at full capacity. I don't think this letter is going to be challenging. It will plant a seed, and it is it's part of the strat plan's commitment to council's strategic plan 2024 to 27. Its commitment to beautification and improved. Yeah, so that's all I've got.
Okay, on the amendment, Councillor St. Pierre.
Another reason for this was that every member of the committee recognized that there were opportunities here for basically ECDEV benefits by actually redoing the bridge, and that those could actually be further enhanced by actually working with the Sooke if the Sooke are available and wish to do so, which obviously they're not beholden to in any way, shape, or form by the letter. But it basically also reopens things because as far as we know, MOTT, not MOT anymore, but MOTT, doesn't seem to have interest in actually repainting the bridge, but if it can be basically presented to them as basically an avenue of further reconciliation, maybe they might consider doing it, or at least reopening the file. And so that was the hope, to essentially have something that looks decent coming into town and get MOTT more interested in doing something about it, and basically working with the Sooke on this in the spirit of reconciliation, if they are available, wish to.
Okay, others on the amendment? Councillor Beddoes, then Pearson.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'm generally in favor of option 1. I don't like the wording in option 2, especially offering the district support for the project within the scope of available resources to be determined. Well, that says a lot. Should there be an interest in the project? I think it's just a basic request, paint the damn bridge, it's your bridge. I wouldn't put that in a letter, mind you, but I think we just ask that the bridge be painted. I don't think going over these other things and involving the Sauk Nation is beneficial at all. So I'm in favor of option 2. I'm in favor of option 1.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Oh, not me. Okay. I am in favor of the amendment and option 2. But I think it to me it should be said is that it's a gateway to our community. It needs to be done. It needs to look better. I have to answer to my wife. My wife says to me, "Why don't you get that painted?" And I go, "Well, it's not ours to paint." Well, see, can't you tell someone to paint it? It seems really basic to someone who's outside local government, but it's a gateway to our community, and it should be kept up by another entity, the provincial government. And, it's great to involve the Sauk First Nation if they want to be involved, but maybe there's something else we could do through the economic development, like lock a lock on there or something like they do in Paris. I don't know. But you know what I mean? It is a gateway, and it's important that it's been maintained. It's been brought up by several people in our community. It's not just us wishing for the bridge to be painted. It's ugly the way it is. Anyway, I'll be voting for this.
Okay, others? Okay, I'll just comment that I do agree. It is very shabby looking. When you look at it, it has been something that I raised in the first meeting with the ministry in 2014. And it's just kind of sat there. I recognize there are significant constraints coming that everyone in government is dealing with right now. However, it would at least, I think, put something there. We've asked again, and we're making an effort here. This has come through a committee here. And it is, when you walk across it, it's very grungy to touch. So it's not our bridge to take responsibility of, but as Councillor Pearson said and others, it is the gateway, and it's really, as you're welcoming into Sooke, you pass our welcome sign, and we've done a lot to attract tourists coming off of the Goose into town. Everyone entering has to go over this bridge. It's your only way in and out unless you do the circle route. And I think it's the case of the worst that'll happen is they'll say, no, not this time, but it'll be on record that we did ask. And we are, the committee has put forward a good recommendation. So I'll support the amendment. So I'm going to call the question on the amendment. On the amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
And that relates to, there is some memorial material on the bridge to AJ, Corey, and Eric. And I think it's vital that that be part of whatever future work is done on that bridge. That particular piece is important to preserve. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the amendment? Any opposed? None are opposed. On the general motion as amended, or the main motion as it's been amended now, anything further? Any last thoughts? Seeing none, all in favor? And that carries unanimously. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to 7.4, please. 2042 Otter Point Road, new liquor primary license.
Yeah, thank you. So staff are seeking direction from council regarding a referral for a new liquor primary license. This application is seeking a new liquor primary license to accommodate a wine tasting bar located at 2042 Otter Point Road in the town center. It would be located within a 570 square foot unit with a 30-person capacity. The hours of operation are proposed for Monday to Saturday, 3 p.m. to 12 a.m. and Sunday, 1 p.m. to 12 a.m. The existing general commercial or C2 zoning is consistent with the proposed use. And in terms of process under the procedures bylaw, council must decide if it wishes to comment and hold a public meeting related to this application or opt out of commenting and allow for the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch to proceed with its review and approval process. Staff are recommending the latter, that council opt out of commenting on this application. Given based on our review and internal referral feedback, staff have no concerns related to the application given the site's location and zoning compliance.
Okay, so the recommendation here is that council receive the staff report dated November 10th, 2025 regarding the new liquor primary license application for Poorhouse Wine Co., license number 137060 for information, and that council opt not to provide comment or recommendation to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch on the application, thereby allowing the branch to proceed with its review and approval process. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Haldane. Go ahead, Councillor St. Pierre.
This seems to be a situation where, in fact, if we actually provide comment, we're just holding up the process and creating delays and extra cost. It looks like it probably go forward just fine without any of our input. So let's just get on with it.
Okay, Councillor Haldane.
I'm supporting small business in our community, and I think this is a good branch or olive branch towards that. Let the provincial guys do their job.
Okay, thank you. Others? Councillor Pearson.
Thank you to our staff. Is, like, says that council opt not to provide a comment or a recommendation to the Liquor Cannabis Branch on the application. Is the applicant here tonight? Oh. Am I allowed to ask?
Yeah.
Okay. Would it help if you got a recommendation before we say we're not going to give one, or is it just good that we just say nothing?
Okay, I'll just ask our staff
Okay.
first here, Miss
So in this case, a recommendation would be for further constraining the liquor license, for example. It's not a recommendation of support.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, it says or recommendation to the, okay.
Sometimes it's curtailing the hours. Usually what I've seen is hours or where or activities and such within.
Mhm.
So sometimes in proximity to maybe in a residential neighborhood, there's concerns of the hours. Where in this case, there's very few residents directly in that vicinity. So in this case, this would be the fastest way to move it. Otherwise, it's having a public event and more commentary and so forth and constraints, is my understanding, right? Yes.
Okay. So by us, with this option then, so by this, we're actually speeding up the application. Is that what I'm to understand?
Reducing costs, speeding up the process. Yes.
Excellent.
Okay, Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I'm in favor of this 100%. A new endeavor in Sooke, another option for people. They roll up the streets at maybe 11 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock. So it's nice to have that opportunity. And so, yeah, I'm all for it.
Okay, no, I'll add, I saw no dancing.
No dance.
Well, I think no planned dancing, but there may be the odd jig that may occur, happy dance or something. But it is exciting to see this move ahead. And again, to have something, sometimes I do get asked, is there anything open beyond 8 o'clock at night that isn't a local fast food operator? So where do the grownups go? So there's other options here. So I am in full support of this and wish the business the very best in their endeavors here. Thank you for choosing Sooke. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Please invite us when you're ready to go. Okay, next up is item 8. I'll just ask if Councillor McMath has joined at all. Have we received anything yet?
She has not joined quite yet.
Okay,
No.
thank you. We're into item 8, motions for which notice has been given. This is by Councillor Haldane. That council directs staff to prepare a report clarifying the status of past council direction related to boulevard landscaping requirements and to provide options for reinstating flexibility, allowing for gardenscapes, plants, and other non-grass materials within district boulevards. And that the report include recommendations to permit increased driveway access for duplex and multi-unit lots, including consideration of multiple driveways or increased combined driveway widths of up to 10 meters where feasible. So that's been provided by Councillor Haldane. Is there a seconder for this motion? Seconded by Councillor Pearson. Councillor Haldane, you have the floor.
Yeah, so for the first part, I mean, the flexibility with gardenscapes and so on, and I brought pictures once upon a time, a couple of years ago, and there's literally dozens and dozens of properties that have really beautiful landscaping jobs done right out to the boulevards. I know we have it in the bylaw right now that has to be grass, but as soon as you get your occupancy, everybody rips up the lawn part and puts in whatever they want. And it, even though our bylaw has the right to be able to go there and say, you have to put it back, we don't do that. So in this case, why not allow the flexibility legally through this process and give people an option? Not everybody wants to have a yard to maintain too. Lots of people like to travel, or they're seniors, or they have ability issues for mowing lawns and so on. And properties are a lot smaller now too, so to be able to have a lawnmower and all these other tools to do the lawns. So the builders group at one point had passed a motion within their own group to ask for something to come forward. I came forward before I was a counselor. Now that I'm on council, I just wanted it to be brought back up again because it kind of got lost in the million resolutions and different things that we have to do as an organization. So I was just refreshing that. And the part about the driveways, which is the second part, is that there's lots of duplexes now that are being built, and they're trying to share one single driveway. So as soon as you get into the yard, you're pulling on 2 different directions. But previous to that, all the duplexes were allowed 2 driveways, and it made things a lot simpler. All the off-street parking could happen in the driveway area. a lot of these duplexes have suites, probably most of them now that are being built. So it's nice to get the cars off the roads, because even now with even people parking 2 cars in a driveway, there's still lots of cars on the streets. It's getting problematic for finding parking on many of the places where we got multiple family units. So trying to find more ability to park off street so we can have parking for everybody. So the other option would be double driveways, or at least a lot wider driveway. So then you're not having to wait for the neighbor to back out first, or if you're coming in at the same time. There's just been a bunch of issues with it. So I thought I'd bring that up as well. And hopefully there's some progress there. So thank you.
Okay, Counselor Pearson?
Yeah, we're asking for a report on 2 things that I think are common sense, and I'm looking forward to a report. I think the more, you know, particularly with the second one, the first one, there's rocks and all kinds of things around, but particularly the second portion about getting more cars off streets, on side streets, into more locations off the street. And you know, I don't believe for a second that people are going to stop parking on the streets, but it gives more options and it gives more flexibility. So anyways, we're just looking for a report here, so I'm happy.
Counselor St. Pierre?
I support the intent of both of the parts of the resolution. I also have a question for staff. Okay. I'm curious, is there any ongoing work in terms of policy or bylaws that might actually include some of these elements? Or is it completely separate? Like, do we have something that actually would work with what's already happening and make it a little bit easier to get this done? Because I know that we're all stretched.
Through your worship to Council St. Pierre, I'll try to answer it, and perhaps Mr. Harder can add anything further, but currently, no. Well, council just weighed in on the requirements for this as part of the subdivision and development standards bylaw that was recently endorsed and supported by council. This was included in there as part of that. An idea that has come through the operations department was to talk about a boulevard policy potentially, but that's not currently underway or anything like that. Like, that's not currently actively being worked on by staff.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, we'd be looking at an amendment to the recently enacted bylaw, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, just to be clear on what we're looking for.
So for clarity, an amendment is already coming, or?
No, it's not.
Okay.
To the bylaw, council just recently adopted the new subdivision, formerly bylaw 400.
Yes.
They recently just adopted this bylaw, which included the requirements for boulevards. Councillor Haldane's requesting that be relooked at. So if that section needs to change, the bylaw would come back with a recommendation potentially once staff had the capacity to produce this report.
I see. And so remind me please, in the recent adoption of the bylaw, we have included some options like this. This has already been included. Like, are we redoing is this a repeat or is this something new?
No, I believe the current bylaw just allows you to put grass in. So Councillor Haldane is looking for alternative options to be permitted by the district. But there's various different reasons council was provided information on why grass is the preferred option for that.
Because that is on district land, district boulevards.
Correct, and it's
Okay.
our responsibility to.
And then can you comment please on the second part of this? Is my understanding is we are now doing this, or is this a change from practice about allowing for more driveway access?
My understanding is we're allowing driveways up to 9 meters, I believe, and as long as street parking or other requirements aren't impacted by that, we have been permitting 2 driveways, as well as if 50% of the frontage isn't taken up by the driveway. So it would kind of be property specific, depending on if this would work for some properties or not. I think Councillor Haldane's just looking for a deeper dive. And if he's looking to go to 10 meters, I believe it's 9 meters right now. So that's just a expansion of that as well that would need to be explored.
Okay, and in the event that this were to pass, when would an actual report come to council? And like, when would this change actually come into play? Potentially?
I mean, from in Q1 2026, staff could bring a report back with options for council on what we've come up with. Realistically, there won't be capacity to present this report before the end of 2025.
Okay, so sometime into 2026. Yeah, we're into November now. Okay. Others? Councillor Bateman?
Well, I'll just show off my research and just, you came to council July 25th, 2022, and that night, on the landscaping issues, boulevard landscaping. And council that night, Councillor Beddoes, seconded by St. Pierre, that council directs staff to consider adding flexibility to bylaw 404 with respect to landscaping requirements during the review of the bylaw. And I think we have in this new bylaw, it's section 4 or appendix 4 deals with landscaping. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the report.
Okay, anything from anyone else? Okay, so it'll be a report. Doesn't mean that anything would change. It would just be a report for council to consider. And then I think it would be understanding the rationale behind that so that council can decide if it wants to make a change or not. All right. Councillor St. Pierre?
Sorry, I'm just curious, given that there seems to be a fair amount of support around the table for actually having some flexibility with the treatment of these areas, would it make sense in the report to have some potential, alternative bylaw stuff that could immediately go in and we could ratify on the spot? And I'm just curious
It's a pretty beefy bylaw.
we're looking at one small section, and I'm sure there's other local governments that have done similar stuff. I'm looking for basically language that if we decide that it's, not going to cost us too much, we're not taking on too much in the way liability, it's a reasonable thing to do that would, basically help with maintenance and lower costs for everybody. If we want to do it, then I don't see any reason to hold it up.
Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I appreciate what was being said, but I think we will wait for the report. I think that's a thing to do. We have Councillor Haldane has put it in very articulate words here. We'll get a report, then we can discuss options, and you'll be present and wait in. So I'd rather wait for the report.
Yeah, we haven't seen the report yet and even decided to have one. Okay, Councillor Haldane?
Yeah, and the one thing to keep in mind, and it came up at the last meeting when we were talking about changing that bylaw or adopting it, is that the maintenance is being provided by the people who own the house in front of whatever boulevard. You're required to take care of your section of the boulevard and stuff. So people that are maintaining these landscapes are doing the one they like to plant their own plants. They like to take care of their own gardens. So, I mean, if this was to pass, then they're looking after a space that they're proud of. It's their own house and so on anyway. So I think it just lends itself to being part with the public where they get to decide what they want to do in their boulevard and the area in front of their house. So, and that seems to come up at lots of these, like say, building meetings and people even asking. We've got lots of people come here to build houses from Vancouver and up island, stuff like that. And they're putting in rockscapes and all this other stuff and then not realizing that their deposit, unless there's grass there, they don't get that back. So then they're coming back in, re-landscaping, putting the grass in, it gets passed. Then a week later, they're bringing the landscapers back and they're putting in the stuff that they want. So it's just, if we could make rules that would be more conducive to getting along with the people who want to build and move into these homes. But thank you.
Okay, I'll call a question. Oh, do you have something else to say? Okay, just checking. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, please? Any opposed? None opposed? That carries. Okay, we're into our notice of motion section. So these are read into where they're read out. They will be debated at the next meeting. The first one is 9.1, Foundry West Shore and Sooke request from Councillor Bateman that council direct staff to include funding within the provisional 2026 to 2030 financial plan in the amounts requested by Thrive Social Services Society in its letter of August 12, 2025 regarding multi-year operational support for Foundry West Shore and Sooke. 9.2, Municipal Economic Development Corporation, MEDC, from Councillor St. Pierre, whereas staff currently do not have the resources or capacity to undertake certain development work identified in the official community plan, and such work is limited interest to the private sector. And whereas the mandate of local government is constrained by the Community Charter and the Local Government Act, and whereas the establishment of a municipal development corporation is a stated recommendation of both the 2025 strategic plan and the 2021 community development strategy and action plan. Therefore, be it resolved that council directs staff to undertake a feasibility study on the establishment of a municipal economic development corporation with a mandate to support land acquisition and disposition strategies consistent with community priorities, advance business development opportunities, facilitate the development of affordable housing, pursue partnerships with local First Nations in the planning and implementation of initiatives, and that staff report back on the potential for affordable housing contribution funds to be allocated in support of such a corporation. So those will come to the next regular meeting. We'll move on to item 10, new business, of which we have not received any. So we'll move to item 11. 11.1, Sooke River Bridge opportunity for enhancement from the Sooke Region Chamber. And that has been pulled for discussion by Councillor Bateman. And the motion is to receive the correspondence for information. So
Yeah,
to
so
Councillor Bateman
moved.
has moved it, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Anything further?
Well, this is just evidence of support by one community partner for this letter to the ministry.
Okay, thank you. Anything from Councillor Pearson? Nope. All those in favor of receipt? That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 12, items removed from the consent agenda, of which there was none. So we're going to resolve into committee of the whole to continue discussion of the development permit areas, part 7 of the District of Sooke official community plan bylaw number 800 2022 as part of ongoing review of the amended draft OCP prior to second reading. So moved by Councillor St. Pierre and Beddoes. Any discussion on this? Nope. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. And we're going to recess now for 10 minutes. It's currently 7:30. We will reconvene 7:31 at 7:41. Thank you. Okay, everyone, if I can please ask you to take your seats, please, so we can resume the meeting. Counselor McMath, I understand you've joined us online. How about we test your audio and video?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, we hear you as well. Thank you. Well, that's because there's a screen up. So we cannot see you right now, but when you raise hand, our staff will notify us and then have your box up in front of us, as you are well aware. Okay, council, there's no staff report, or is there one? No, okay, so I think we're just picking up where we left off, and that is part 7, the development permit areas. And so what staff have on the screen here is the clean version. I understand some of us are looking at the one that's redlined, so there's maybe a bit of discrepancy in the page numbers, but not too much. And we'll just sort of go through this page by page, I think. Starting off with part 7, which is the one in front of us, development permit areas, which is just an overview. Is there any comments? And I'm just going to move through the pages. And then we have 7.1.1, general requirements. There is one item removed, the wildlife study. And then into 7.1.2, general exemptions for development permit areas. So I don't know, maybe what would be helpful is we found it confusing when we were jumping around. So perhaps if I could just ask, is anyone have anything to raise in, say, the first section of this? 7.1.1, 7.1.2, 7 in those sections? The microphone?
Yeah, so I think it's worth noting these aren't questions, these are more comments. So this 7.1.2 item 1, authorized construction, is a new addition, a response to development and builder community concerns that this new OCP would become onerous on their currently unfolding projects. So that is a new addition.
Okay, thank you.
And 7, oh no, that's it.
Okay, anything from anyone on this first sort of pages here, 7.1 point?
Yeah, I just keep trying to keep track. 7.1.2.
Yeah, general exemptions for development permit areas is sort of that whole section.
Okay.
You have something in the microphone, please.
Okay, so in the redlined edition, and it's hard to see because it doesn't come up on my screen. Okay, so there,
That's the clean version on the screen.
this is the clean version. Okay, so this one here, the one that I've got in, which is in our agenda tonight, right? 7.1.2, where, okay, added, I think it says added exemption to clarify that new development permit requirements established by the OCB. So can I see where that is in here? That's
Do you know what number that is?
7.1.2.
And then what sub number?
It is. Let's see. It's in green. It's off to the right, right? So it's the exemption 7.1.2, and it looks like paragraph.
Is the first one. Aye.
Okay, the top one is the refine to clarify how exemptions are confirmed and the responsibility of the applicants to verify the eligibility. It's the next one down. So I want to see where that says 1.7.
So the first comment is related to the new paragraph.
Yes.
That's the last paragraph. And then when you get into I, then you're dealing with the second comment. So that'll be comment 17 on the red line.
So this is authorized construction development is exempt from new development permit requirements established by this OCP where construction has commenced in accordance with a valid and previously issued development permit. So this is basically all this is doing is saying that it's in process. So it's in process It's exempt, so anything, this is the line in the sand. Okay, so that's the first exemption that we're talking about. Okay, now I'm trying to follow. So you've taken these side notes and put them into the bullet points over there. Okay, the I and the I.
The comments explain the red line changes, so they're
Got it.
comments, they're not verbatim.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the difference that I had between the agenda tonight and then the clean or the last amended copy, the red line copy, which I have, which is the 370 and whatever pages. Okay, I'm following along now.
Okay,
I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding how it's rolling.
so anything else from anyone in 7.1.2, general exemptions for development permit areas? And that would be page 172 and 173 of the clean version.
Okay, so
Okay,
the clean version is going to be on our screen.
that's
right?
what's on the screen in front of
Okay.
you. Yeah,
Got it.
but this gives you the notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm following this on my.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Okay, Counselor St. Pierre, can you turn your mic off? You're good? Okay. So I'm going to keep moving. And of course, if you missed something and want to come back to it later, that's fine. So let's go on to 7.2, which is DPA 1, energy and water conservation and greenhouse gas emissions reduction. Go ahead, Counselor Bateman.
Yeah, so I think this is 7.2.5.1, item 1.
Okay, 7.2.
2.5.1.
Okay.
And of course, in the clean version, I'm really addressing the redlined point that the requirement for an energy advisor assessment report has been removed. And I just, could you please, because this was one of those key points raised by the building community, through you to Mr. Riley?
Yes, thanks for the question, and through the mayor. So upon receipt of our legal review, we understood that this was a bit of an overreach to be regulating the internal energy systems of a building through a development permit area. So as noted in the red line comments, that section 491.4 of the LGA does specify what we can require or what a DPA, its legal authority contains. So we felt with the legal advice that this would be reasonable to then remove. And we also received some feedback from the development community that we heard and actioned here as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anything from 7.2 DPA 1? Did I miss some? Go ahead.
I got another one. I just really want to highlight some of these many changes. There have been approximately 60 changes within the development permit area guidelines. And this is the item 7.2.5.3, which is the informational guidance that is being added here. And I think that's really worth highlighting as part of,
They're voluntary
best
yeah.
practices to reduce embodied and operational GHG emissions. And their informational do not form part of the enforceable DP requirements. So I think that particular addition really speaks volumes about the nature of these DP guidelines.
Councillor St. Pierre?
Clarifying question on this. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. So I understand that it's encouraged as a voluntary best practice. Do we have any incentives or means of actually encouraging? What would that look like?
Yes.
I guess it's not so much the enforcement, but the operationalizing. But do we have a means of operationalizing this?
Thanks for the question. And through the mayor, we currently do not. I think when it goes live, we could certainly consider a policy or scoring mechanism that we could potentially ask developers to fill out. Again, I think it's a bit of a gray area if you're scoring and using the weight of that score, if you can't actually regulate it through a development permit area guideline to say yes or no to a project. But it could just be an additional piece of information of consideration that could potentially help incentivize these things. But something staff could internally consider, I think going forward. I think there'd be some options there.
Some municipalities have a fast track system, lower permitting fees, those sort of things to entice and encourage that. So that would be a policy decision of council at the time, but that would allow for that. And that's when these would come into play because it would be, that's what that particular local government is striving for. So they incentivize that over traditional forms.
Okay, so more work would need to be done, but we could provide incentives.
Yes, it would need to be a priority, identified as a priority item, and then also where then are you offsetting the revenue difference from? So there's a big change there that would have to happen, but there are some local governments doing that. Councillor Pearson?
Yeah, so reading this, the following measures are encouraged. So how do we communicate when there's a DPA application under DPA number 1? How does this get communicated to the person when they make an application? Or how do we envision that? I know that's a little tactical, but so is this just handed out to them? And there's no requirement whatsoever for them to even look at this page? Is that kind of like, it's like, I'm envisioning somebody making an application. Okay, DPA number 1, they're gonna be going through this stack of papers and they're going, okay, well, where does the rubber hit the road with this actual action plan?
Yeah, through the mayor, I think there's lots of opportunities where developers are looking to put their best foot forward and go above and beyond. And I think that's how we would communicate these, by encouraging an applicant to potentially go above and beyond and show us how they're doing that. Guidelines aren't regulations necessarily, right? So not every guideline would necessarily be followed or be reflected in a project. Maybe there could be a way of leveraging these encouraged guidance or guidelines to help bring other pieces up as well. But again, it's a bit of a delicate territory because you can't deny an application based on not meeting these guidelines.
Oh, and the other side of the coin, I was slow. So the other side of the coin is if someone comes forward and says, okay, I'm going to use hempcrete. Hempcrete, is that what the word is?
Yeah.
Hempcrete. That's the first time I've ever seen it actually until just now. So someone says they're going to use hempcrete. Are they, where does the subject matter go back into the building permitting phase for clarity? So I'm using hempcrete. And have I triggered a whole bunch of unwanted building inspections and you know, I don't, because it's new. I get the word encourage, but what happens when somebody goes down this encouraged road? Because it seems it's great, I get it's good there, and it's encouraged, but what's the other side if I decide to go down that road?
Well, nothing would be forcing them to go down the road of you know, not me or sorry, of meeting these encouraged guidelines. But I think it would just be maybe a reflection of a developer looking to go the extra mile and just showing us how they're doing that. If we're providing some voluntary guidance here that they choose to take, then I think that would be just an extra benefit and provide additional support from staff to do so.
Yeah, it's just that if you use hempcrete, and I'm going to ask Councillor Haldane, you ever heard of hempcrete?
Yeah.
Okay, is it easy to use?
So the house piece.
You're not using the microphone. So Councillor Haldane has heard of it and suggested and said there was a house built in East Sooke.
There's only one built that I know of so far.
But there's no problem. No problem with using hempcrete as far as like engineering buildings. Like I'm just
The guy that uses it is an engineer.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
Really appreciate Councillor Pearson's question, and I'm going to add a little bit to that. This is not part of our OCP at this point in time, but if we actually put this in place, which seems reasonably likely, it would behoove us to actually not discourage the kind of building that we want to see happen and do whatever we can to actually even the playing field a little bit so people are encouraged to do so. Best thing about the step code ever did was actually allow people to meet the objectives in any way they want to, except the building code doesn't allow you to do that. Now, if you actually allow some of this stuff to happen and actually don't work strictly through the building code, you could actually have some very creative, very interesting forms of building, including hempcrete, harmless home, and so on and so forth. But we would have to do some work up front to make sure that developers know that this is actually not going to bite them. You know, just.
Councillor Haldane?
Well, and with that, I mean, I agree. The problem is most of our building departments aren't equipped to understand it or even pass it. So even though the building code or engineers say, do this, this, and this, the ultimate authority still relies on our building department to say, yeah, we'll accept that, which sounds crazy. I mean, if they require engineering because they don't want to go through the code to analyze all this stuff, you would think that that engineering would be the all to end all, but it's not.
Okay, you need to use your microphones, please.
We would
And
have to have a concerted policy to actually really support this stuff, which would make a lot of sense. But anyway, I'm just.
And lots of this housing stuff, there's a lot of information available on all this stuff, but we'd probably have to go further than saying may or may not. We should implement something probably through a committee process yet again, where we can have an alternative use. And the code does allow for that. There's alternative log houses do not pass the step code anywhere, but they still do them all over the place. There's companies and Kamloops that are building them like crazy, but there's a special section in the code that helps them deal with that externally. Yeah.
okay,
If I may, Mayor, we do have Chris Marshall's hand up just now.
okay, Mr. Marshall.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to clarify that, you know, the development permit area guidelines, just like the guidelines for form and character, there's going to be circumstances where it doesn't make sense for that particular site to require or to, you know, consider that guideline. So, you know, in the case of energy efficiency, you know, there's talk in this development permit area about siting of buildings. And it could be that due to the design of the building, the view from the property, you know, they don't want to site the building such that it has a solar gain. I think what we're trying to do in this development permit area is provide education and to encourage. I mean, the whole official community plan is based on being carbon neutral at a certain point in time. And so what we're trying to do is provide that education and that encouragement at this stage in the game to say, here's different ways of doing things that will help us as a community to reduce our greenhouse gases and make our buildings more efficient long term. And so I think, you know, it's not dictating how people do that, but it's providing guidelines as to ways in which they could achieve that.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to the next one, 7.3 DPA 2, General Environmental Protection. Questions? Go.
Few pages.
Councillor Bateman, yep.
Yeah, to page 177 in the clean version. (177), and it's item 9. And in some of the feedback I read, there was some concern around the nature of a future district energy system and how that might cause difficulties for builders. Could you, and I know you state this, I believe, in your in one of your responses here, redlined responses. Could you tell me about what a future district energy system is? Potentially?
Yeah, through the mayor, so and maybe Chris Marshall could speak to this as well, given his experience in Gibson's. But these would be localized sources of energy, basically shared in more local fashion than coming in through BC Hydro from building to building, basically. But Chris, maybe if you wouldn't mind sharing your experience.
Yeah, so in the district of, or in the town of Gibson's, we had a district energy system. It was a neighborhood of about 250 new single-family homes. And we placed a geothermal district energy system in a central park, a 1.5 acre park. And the deal we had with the developer is that as long as his side of it was, well, as long as it doesn't cost me more money and cost me more time, I'm willing to consider this as an option. And so what we ended up doing was putting geothermal piping under the park. So you have to, you know, dig up the park, put the piping in, put all the soil back, and then you can put whatever you want on top of that area. And then there's just a pump system that pumps the water down the streets, and all the homes tap into that district energy system. And North Van has district energy systems. There's a lot of different communities, London, Ontario, whereby these district energy systems are much more efficient because then not every single building has to have all the mechanical systems. They just tap into that looped system of heating, and they can just draw from that energy system that's looped through the community. It is a huge savings in energy, greenhouse gases, money. So it doesn't work everywhere, obviously, and you need to have the right land and the right district energy system. But a district energy system could be a gas-fired system. It doesn't have to be a system that is an alternative energy source. But I'm just giving the example that we used in Gibson's.
Langford has done this as well for a more local example.
So we've yet to identify any areas in the district that might have the potential.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor St. Pierre?
It's not necessarily ideal from the point of view of GHG emissions, but what Mr. Marshall was saying is that there's been lots of this type of energy system, especially in large institutional buildings, like, you know, hospitals and such. They basically have a boiler system and they send energy throughout the system. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about here. A developer could decide that in order to meet their step code requirements, they would actually put in some sort of such a system, and then they might much more easily just meet all the requirements. That's the kind of idea. And they could potentially do it using fossil fuels or some other source.
Okay, back to 7.3, DPA 2, General Environmental Protection. That is. Sorry,
180 on the clean,
180 on the clean,
181 on the red line.
They're pretty close together. Councillor Pearson.
So 7.3.2 designation. The General Environmental Protection Development Area DPA2 applies to all land within the District of Sooke. All land. The General Environmental Protection Development Permit Area is designated as per Part 14, Division 7 bylaw. Protection of natural environment, its ecosystems, and its biological diversity. Development permit is required as per Part 14, Division 7, Section of the Local Government Act prior to land alteration, subdivision, or building construction. So does that mean that if I had a large piece of property and I want to cut down some trees to grow a garden, is it subject to this DPA?
Yeah, through the mayor. So it would depend. Right. So if
Potentially, yes. then.
potentially, yeah. So say you could have sensitive ecosystems in that bunch of trees that you want to remove. Maybe there's a endangered species of bird and a bird nest within the tree. You know, that would be something we'd want to take a look at, as well as the province would with its legislation.
Okay. So my problem with that is that as we transition from a rural community to an urban community, we're still surrounded by large properties, a lot of large properties, a lot of people who have owned those properties for a large number of years, who have had latitude in clearing parts of the forest on their own land to put in a garden, a horse pen, garage, or whatever. So how does this get executed if I own a piece of property on Otter Point Road and I want to put a garden in and I want to cut down some trees. Do I have to come to the district of Sooke and make an application under DPA number 2? It is number 2, isn't it?
Through the mayor, there's a lot of variables there, as I tried to note before, but it would be on a case by case basis. But in the grand scheme of things, I think it would be the work that's proportional to the property, and we look at a clear cut of a 1 hectare parcel, not leaving a single tree on the site is obviously something we want to reel in a little bit, have preservation of some of those trees, especially the mature trees, and that would probably require a study from a QEP or an arborist to confirm where those mature tree stands should remain. In the case where you have a 1 hectare property and you're cutting down a couple trees for a garden, then that's not something that staff would be trying to regulate necessarily, but it would really be on a case by case basis and depend on the environment that it surrounds and supports.
Comment is that's a monumental shift in our community. Monumental. It's tough for me to think about the people that have owned their properties for years and years and years. And anyways, I don't want to go on the philosophical side of it, but my question goes back to, how does someone know, because we have a lot of law-abiding citizens, how does someone know what triggers that DPA? How do they know? They have to come in and make an application if they're going to build a garden. Is that the only way, or do they read the OCP?
I think before someone proceeds with developing their property, they should check in with the district to confirm if any permits are required. And at that time, staff would likely have the capability to confirm if a development permit was warranted or not, or if there was a gray area, then they would ask for potentially a study to confirm that there's no significant disturbance occurring there. And yeah, we would always aim to be, working with residents where we can.
Just to note for my fellow councillors.
We've also received petitions from residents with great upset about land that has been cleared, devastating their property, exposing their trees to more wind damage and the like, damage to habitat and so forth. So there's also been numerous pieces of correspondence related to that.
If I may, Mayor, I also do have Councillor McMath with her hand up.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor St. Pierre first and then to Councillor McMath.
Okay, the example that was given was someone spilled a garden, correct?
Garden.
A garden.
Or a pig pit.
Okay, well, I don't actually see, the exemptions include, building up to 4 houses. Why would you actually need a DP for a garden? And on top of that, we don't have a tree bylaw, so people can cut as many trees as they want at this point in time, no matter what. How does this actually even possibly have an impact on someone putting in a garden? I just don't see it based on what I'm seeing here. So realistically.
Yeah, so I think what's important here is in the general exemptions, the language states that all of these activities are specifically exempt unless they have an impact on, say, land alteration or something like that. So like a 4-unit building would be exempt from form and character, for example. But if you were building a 4-unit building in a riparian area, it's something that we would want to take a look at, and it would trigger a development permit. So the preamble and the exemptions speak to that more specifically.
Councillor McMath?
The updates go a fair ways to making the DPA section clear, but I still have a lot of issue with, there's some wording where it says where feasible, where applicable, may. And so what that'll translate to is staff discretion, which you can casually say, they might have to get a QEP and they might have to get an arborist report, but to put that into a dollar amount, that's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Like a QEP at minimum is going to be $5,000. So just to casually say, we may this, we may that, it also creates an issue with objectivity. So typically a standard employee stays at a place of employment these days for 5 years. So what happens when we have a staff member that interprets a DPA or interprets a property a certain way, and then they move on, and a new staff member comes in and they interpret that DPA or that property differently, what's going to happen is we are going to create this sort of big pool of frustration, and it's going to feel that it is not, people are getting treated, it's going to feel like people are getting treated differently because this person got approved for it, but we have a new staff member and they didn't. Those kind of pieces. Plus they have this massive dollar amount attached to them. So there's kind of been this conversation, well, we can come back to these pieces. And I just really hope people are paying attention to the actual dollar amount of having an arborist and a QEP come in. The other piece that I don't understand is how we even have this need to manage the shoreline area. The Sooke residents treat their properties and their waterfronts well, so I'm not sure how this became such a large priority. Plus, there's already overlap with the riparian areas protection regulation, water sustainability. So those are just a couple pieces. I didn't do all of my notes by section. They're more generalized because there's a bit of a repeat throughout different DPAs. But I'll leave it there for now.
So in 7.3 DPA 2, in the general protection, environmental protection, what is council wanting to change? Going back to the table. Mr. Riley?
Sorry, I just wanted to make a comment on Councillor McMath's comments there. Just regarding having some discretion, it's very typical and best practice to have some degree of staff discretion when it comes to development permit areas. It would be very challenging to have 100% certainty with absolutely every situation that occurs development-wise within the district. So as nice as it would be to have 100% certainty and just tight, clear language, which we have tried to implement as best we can, while still giving us a bit of a balance, I think, with staff discretion. And certainly understanding the intent of these guidelines is really key. And we've heard the feedback as well from the development community and from the general public about consistency and interpretation. And as I mentioned in previous presentations with the OCP, is that staff would look to add to the clarity with this document with supplemental policy guidance, internal guidelines for staff to confirm exactly when and where these triggers are necessary, while still leaving it somewhat a bit more discretionary in the language in the OCP, but having it more refined and a bit more malleable and flexible to change. I think later on, perhaps depending on if culturally or systematically things are changing internally, rather than having to amend an OCP bylaw, we have a more flexible policy to work with. But anyway, that's part of our long-term, or I should say short-term plan.
Okay. So I'm looking again for a council member, should they so wish at this time, propose any amendment further to what staff has done here. Go ahead, Herb, or Councillor Haldane.
Well, I think, and I don't see any language to it or whatever, we have to take into consideration liability. And I've been looking up over the last few days, whatever, different liabilities based on some of the stuff we're putting in and out of these documents. And it's interesting that even the provincial government says that we're allowed to enact tree bylaws, we're allowed to do certain things with the DPAs and stuff, but there's still a negligence that if fire interface, if we don't give people the opportunity to protect their homes through fire and yada, yada, then we can be implemented in a liability case and so on. So I think it's important that if we're going to keep something like this in there, that we would maintain it in riparian areas or somewhere of significance. But to tell somebody, yeah, you can't cut a bunch of trees down your property because you might make the neighbors mad or whatever, shouldn't be a reason for them to have to go through a bunch of permitting processes where you hire on.
That's not I don't see that though. This is talking about mitigating environmental impacts in environmentally sensitive and protected areas and to ensure the continued existence of these areas. So that would be 7.3.3. Well, because you would have to do asset management of every single property in Sooke and then put out what if scenarios on everything. There's some properties that may sit there for 10 years with no change whatsoever.
That's why we don't have a tree bylaw, is because I think you assume a bunch of responsibility if you do that. And Machosen looked into a tree bylaw for the very reason, and then they decided to scrap it because they didn't want to assume liability.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre?
I think we're looking for clarity here and I'm not actually seeing it.
No.
So what I'm actually getting here is that we would actually need, for example, maybe an environmental professional to basically assert that it's not a riparian area before you could actually say, okay, I don't need an environmental professional. And that's a bit of a catch. I want to know that's not the catch-22 we're in here. Because if, as Councillor Pearson has pointed out, it's all lands, and what we're trying to do is protect sensitive lands, the only thing you can do is actually get a professional to determine if there are any sensitive lands. In which case you have the cost of getting an assessment using a professional on all lands.
But you have to back up to the intent of this section. In the first part, it says, the following section includes guidelines for the protection of environmentally sensitive areas where land alteration or development is proposed.
Who decides when it's
The
environmental?
guidelines will be used by the District of Sooke in evaluating development applications. Environmentally sensitive areas all provide invaluable functions and so forth. So that is the intent of this section, are those that are in those areas.
Absolutely.
And that is not all areas of the District of Sooke.
Absolutely, but how do you prove whether or not you're in an environmentally sensitive area other than having a professional come in and do an assessment? It feels like there might be a catch-22 here.
But if you look at the provincial best practices guide and regulation, it says, I mean, the one that says right here, presence of water, specific type of vegetation that thrives there, riparian areas are the critical transition zones that link aquatic streams, lakes, wetlands. So we could have some language in here that would trigger that, basically lakes and rivers and streams. And then they've got the 15-meter setback that's standard, and it says in some cases 30 meters.
That would be a reasonable amendment.
If I may, I also do have Councillor McMath's hand up.
Councillor McMath, can you turn off your microphones if you're not speaking, because it picks up a lot of back? Can you turn yours off too? Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor McMath.
Councillor St. Pierre is hitting on the same thing that was flagging for myself, which is what is the definition of an environmentally sensitive area? And so what he's alluding to is the same flag that I found, which is, I don't see a clear definition in here. So in order to get a definition, does each property owner have to go hire a consultant or a specialist? Like if staff looks at a property and says that they think that it is an environmentally sensitive area based on their personal opinion, does then that homeowner have to go get a QEP or go to an arborist to verify that it's not?
Mr. Marshall, do you have any comment here to help us out? I'm just going by there's a definition that's in here in the glossary.
Yeah, I think the objectives, state that the intent is to, protect the environmentally sensitive areas. So, the protect the natural environment, its ecosystems, habitat, and biological diversity from the impacts of development and restore lost or degraded ecosystem function. So, I mean, when somebody goes to develop a property that has a creek running through it, it could be that where they're developing is nowhere near the creek. They're well beyond the 30-meter setback. It's not an issue, right? And I think, as the manager of planning was saying, every lot is very different from each other. You could have a lot that's on a steep slope, that's got a waterfall running down it, that's treed, that's, so, or you could have a lot that is an infill lot between two homes that has no trees on it, that doesn't have a creek running through it, and it's a non-issue, right? I mean, yes, staff will have to have some discretion, but I think in the latter example, in which it's an infill lot in between two existing lots that were created in a subdivision, staff are not going to say, well, we want, environmental assessments and we want, an arborist report where there's no trees and we want, all this money to be spent. They would just come in for a building permit. I think you have to trust your staff who are professionals to have some discretion in these things and to be reasonable. And I guess what you're assuming is that every staff member necessarily will be unreasonable, and a staff member can be unreasonable with the riparian area guidelines as well. So, and I think the other thing we have to keep in mind is that, it does speak to land alteration. So, I mean, what I'm thinking is that if anything needs to be, because I don't think anybody's disagreeing with construction, subdivision, development of the property. It seems the concern is that, well, if I cut a couple of trees down. So perhaps what the definition is needed or some clarification is needed is, what does land alteration mean? And maybe by defining that better, it can give people some, certainty that, oh, if I just, cut a couple of bushes or some trees, that's not going to trigger anything. I don't know, maybe that's a solution.
I think that would go a long way. And I'm not assuming that you're unreasonable. It's the reality is that staff come and go, and people have different perspectives and different interpretations. And so our job is to set up staff, but also the community for success. And part of that is clarifying language in here that, in my opinion, seems quite open to interpretation, which leads to feelings sometimes of animosity from community members, because as I'm sure you've experienced, people have neighbors who didn't have to pave their driveway, but now that we have upgraded certain requirements, now as they develop, they have to pave their driveway and they get very frustrated. And that's one of like 100 examples. So just looking to eradicate that those types of experiences as we go forward.
Okay, so the suggestion is to add a definition. So far, the movement on the table would be to add a definition of land altering to the glossary. Yes? Okay. That's one thing, okay, and that would fall into the glossary. Okay, I'll go Councillor Beddoes. Was that you?
Well, no, I was just going to say just that is let's just make a definition of land alteration. Now we're going to have to go away and hopefully get a good definition. But I mean, it's not a hard ask, so I don't have a problem.
Okay, Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, I'm kind of struggling here a bit with the intent is good. And I feel that, protect environmentally sensitive areas of DPA, but it feels like and this is Councillor St. Pierre's words, it feels like we're going down into the weeds in this DPA. Like if the DPA like I always like the OCP to be our guiding moral compass. And it feels like that back half of this DPA should be in our subdivision and development bylaws. For me personally, it's like, okay, we all want to protect environmentally sensitive areas. I don't think anybody on the planet doesn't want to do that. But I don't want it to be a backhanded tree bylaw. What it feels like to me, it's like I'm struggling with the difference between the intent and the application. I think the intent is good and solid, but it feels like we're going, Councillor St. Pierre's words, down into the weeds with the tactical side of it in this DPA. I don't know what
see that. I also see though that with the changes to public hearings and public participation is they will no longer be able to voice their concern on these sorts of things. And we did receive significant correspondence over Ella Stream. And what happened to that? And the commitment by council was to do something to prevent that site type of occurrence from happening again. It was a riparian area that was completely blown up.
And I think we were all aware of that and we were all aware of that and we all agreed and we all committed to say, you know, not on our watch. However, again, moment in time, that was before we're
Okay,
going,
there's other speaker,
I just want,
Counselor
Okay.
Beddoes. then
My apologies. I
St. Pierre.
also do have Counselor McMath. as
Yeah,
well.
but I
Thank
see
you.
Counselor Beddoes and St. Pierre and Bateman and then Counselor McMath. Thank you.
Well, it goes back, I hear from Councilor Pearson that he likes the intent and, you know, all that, but the devil's in the details. If, for instance, somebody in these areas is dealing with something and doesn't like staff's interpretation, do they not have the right to come to council? So, I mean, I don't see this is going to be something that happens every week. If there's something every couple of years, and if there's a dispute, we've seen it before, a dispute with council, they come and ask for us to be involved in it more. We have the power to make those changes. So, I mean, as long as the intent is right, if it goes down to we got some jerk on staff that is really pulling a God syndrome, then council is the arbitrator in the end. The buck stops with us. But I mean, we cannot go in these things and put every little possible outcome. And I think that's what's confusing thing. If the intent is good, then the arbitrator in the end, if there's a dispute, and I doubt whether there's going to be a lot of disputes. I mean, I may get some dispute with that. But we are the arbitrator, or the council of the day can make that determination if the staff is, council feels they're overstepping their boundaries. And again, it's going to have to be done on a case-by-case basis because there's no two properties the same. So, I mean, I hear the intent is good. Well, let's leave it at the intent is good. And if it gets to be a problem, then council can arbitrate it. So you're not going to go into this thing and put every little possible outcome of you chop 3 trees down and not 4. Define land alteration and the intent is good, and then we'll see where it falls. I think it's overcomplicating thing. If you want to have every little detail put in there, we're not going to get anywhere with anything. So the intent is good. Let's leave it like it is. Put the land alteration. If it gets to be a problem, whoever the council is of the day can make the change.
Counselor St. Pierre, then Bateman, then McMath.
I'm thinking about what Councilor McMath was saying before, and I'm not concerned as much about staff latitude as I am about lack of understanding on the part of the users of the document and getting confused. So that's it. So in terms of what you were saying, I'm more concerned about that. And I think there is actually possibly an easy fix. I'm going to suggest an actual small amendment.
Okay, what is it?
The small amendment would be just the first line of 7.3.2 designation. And I think this is the intent. General Environmental Protection Development Permit Area DPA applies to all environmentally sensitive land within, not all land, but all environmentally sensitive. And we do have a definition of environmentally sensitive. And at that point, I think we kind of tighten up things so that people can actually really understand what's going on.
Okay, so just pause there for a second, so we can process that. So that would be the suggested change. 7.3.2 designation in the first sentence, instead of just applies to all land, it would say to all environmentally sensitive land.
And we have a definition, so.
So adding the words environmentally sensitive within the district of Sooke, because land already exists. So I'm just going to, okay, seems fine to our staff.
And no issue there. Is there
Okay.
consensus?
Okay, so, okay,
Do we have a catalog of environmentally sensitive? Oh, do we have a catalog of environmentally sensitive lands? No, we have a definition.
we have a definition of what it means.
Okay, so now you have to go back. It gets into this complicated. Well, but we have to go back again and ask. It's going in and asking, do I have an environmentally sensitive land? Who's going to make that decision? And it's another report, another
Well, you would
environmental.
know if you have an eagle's nest on your property
No.
or a stream. You would know that.
We're going to cut down trees in the middle of our land, in the middle of our property, in rural properties. Who makes a determination if it's environmentally sensitive or not? Is it a report that comes from a professional at $5,000? Or I don't know what the price is. I'm not gonna say that. I heard 5,000 somewhere earlier tonight. So who's gonna make those designations? This is an overcomplicated DPA. Sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna go on. So there, St. Pierre recommended this. Our staff are fine. Is there consensus with this change? Okay, so I'll just ask, does everyone agree with the change? Okay, Councillor Pearson disagrees. Majority rules, so that one carries. I'm gonna go on to Councillor Bateman. No, it was Bateman, then McMath. I've written it down.
Yeah. So yeah, I just note what Mr. Riley said earlier about future development of supplemental policy guidelines to get further clarity within the week, these statements. So I'm curious about if we can move on. I don't know if Councillor McMath would like to finish off on this item, or
She might, so
let's go to her.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor McMath on this section?
I just have a question for everybody, but mostly for staff. Is there a downside, like if we merge DPA 1, 2, and 3, and we just simplify it into referencing what the province already does? What's the downside of that?
Through the mayor, so it was outside the scope, I guess, of the our approach, I guess, to look at combining these two, or at least it wasn't specifically identified until now. But I guess, yeah, to speak to the first part, merging them all together, I suppose, could potentially work. They both have, but all three of them have different focuses. So I think I think personally that it is, and professionally, helpful to have them separated to some extent, as some won't apply, but others will. And they do have their own separate uses and intents here with the guidelines. The province itself would have guidelines, but it doesn't regulate activities to a large extent that occur on municipal land. Something like the riparian area regulation is an exception. But we have guidelines in there that expand beyond what the riparian area regulation is trying to implement. So we address the fact that we use the riparian regulation as basically a foundation, and then we build upon that. So hopefully that provides some insight into why it potentially should remain, or the issues around that.
But if this is just an aspirational document and we're going to create some, what was the term that was used earlier? Basically black and white, like the supporting documents for clarity with strict definitions and all those pieces. And this is an aspirational document. What's the downside of just merging the three and referencing how the province regulates?
Well, like I said previously, the province regulates differently than the district does, so it would be severely lacking, and it wouldn't be meeting these guidelines to a large extent. So that part, and then merging them together, I suppose there's benefit in having these separated because they do have their own unique purpose.
Okay, so going in the same zone, there's multiple examples where our DPAs duplicate the provincial regulatory bodies. So in terms of simplifying this, is there a way to pull those pieces out? Or just reference?
Can you be specific?
Yeah, like if we go into DPA 3, there is overlap with who.
Or next, so continue there then, please.
Pardon?
Okay, because we were in the second one, so if you have no comment on that, then everyone should turn their focus to DPA 3. We'll move into.
It's not that I don't have no comment on it. I asked a question and then I was asked to give an example, and the example that comes to mind is one from DPA 3.
Which section, which page?
The question remains the same, is if it's fine. I'm just gonna leave this for now.
Okay, so we'll move to 7.4, DPA 3, the foreshore area. Counselor Bateman.
Well, actually, we got to go back because I had a question on 7.3.4.3, page 182. Habitat protection. Now, I think given the earlier comments around the $5,000 qualified environmental professional report, a new line is being added, quote, "The scope and level of detail of the report should be proportionate to the scale and potential impact of development." So I'd like to ask through you to Mr. Riley to tell us a bit more about that. So there are QEP reports that are full blown and hundreds of, not hundreds, but many pages versus potentially a much less expensive and brief report. Correct?
That's
No,
correct.
don't answer that.
Oh.
No, go give me some detail.
So through the mayor, I think what we heard from the public and well, mainly the public, because we're talking about mom and pop developers or somebody who wanted to prune a bush or maybe remove a hazardous tree or something like that, and are concerned about the cost of these reports. Obviously, with the large scale development, subdivision, 20 lot subdivision of bare land, that's going to trigger some studies. And I think costs are being, $5,000 or $10,000 environmental assessment would be obviously more reasonable and proportionate to the scale of development. So with the mom and pop developers or et cetera, like, there still may be a cost to removal of a tree. Like development does cost money at any scale, but of course our ask for what that report looks like from a QEP would be proportionate to what activity is being proposed here. So in some cases it could be simply a site visit with a one-page memo just to confirm that all is good. That we don't need to understand the biological history or ecosystems of the property, for example.
Thank you. That should allay some fears. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're into DPA 3, the foreshore area. Been a lot of edits here. Well, this is now council's opportunity to question or propose more edits. That's why we're here. Go ahead,
Yeah, I'll
Councillor
just
Bateman.
note on 7.4.5.1, the final bullet point is a very similar point around the level of detail should correspond to the scale of the proposed works. So very similar to what the last observation was.
Thank you. Councillor St. Pierre.
Just a very quick question for staff, if that's possible.
Yeah, but you need to speak more into the microphone and not turn your head because otherwise it's hard to hear.
Okay, 7.4.4, for some reason, the word routine was included, whereas I don't actually see it as an advantage. Why was routine included instead of just yard and garden maintenance? To be a rationale because it was actually changed, a red line change made.
If I may, Chris Marshall has his hand up.
Go ahead, Mr. Marshall.
Sorry, I'm going back and forth between Zoom and the actual document too. So maybe I'm happy to have Councillor St. Pierre finish before I make a comment.
He was asking why the word routine was added into routine yard or garden maintenance rather than just
Yeah,
yard or
I can
garden
respond to
maintenance.
that. Suppose I don't have a great answer. It was just some additional language to confirm that we're talking like basic maintenance that occurs periodically. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just gonna actually highlight the exemptions because I think those were additions that were made specifically in relation to the uncertainty that the foreshore property owners had around what exactly was going to be, what was going to trigger a development permit and what wasn't. And I think that I think Jaden did a great job of, laying out. It's not routine garden work and maintenance and pruning and removal of invasive species. It's not about, replacing or doing renovations on your deck or your fences. And so, because there was a lot of misinformation that happened around the time of this first going through the public process in 2022. And again, I've heard it in just the comments that we've heard from the public in meetings and in the letters and emails we've got, that there's this sense that, the town is going to, bring the hammer down if somebody so much as cuts a blade of grass. So I think, it's important that it be acknowledged that these exemptions have been clarified so that people should understand, that we're not trying to be overly onerous here. We're just trying to be reasonable.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, some comforting language was put in so that owners would feel better about the whole thing. Okay, cool. Thank you.
If I may, I do have Councillor McMath stand up.
Go ahead, Councillor McMath.
I was wondering if it was possible to have some sort of mechanism that shows where provincial approvals would be sufficient for someone to avoid getting duplicate DPA requirements, basically.
So yeah, through the mayor, there are no duplicate DPA requirements for the province of the foreshore area. Our jurisdiction starts at the high water mark upland, and there starts at the high water mark out to the sea.
And there is not a way for you to show that to a resident.
How would you suggest I show it?
Like if you have a table or some sort of like infographic for a resident. Because Mr. Marshall was making a really good point, which is that there is a lot of fear in the community that I think it was his example was cut a blade of grass. And but any way that we can show clarity or simplify the language so that a resident doesn't get confused or doesn't feel like, oh my God, I'm going to have to go here. I'm going to have to go here. There's those pieces. Any way we can help simplify that and quell the fear that is definitely going around.
Yeah, just to add to that, so I think I mentioned this in the last meeting, though, we have DPA mapping that's been produced by our GIS department that's publicly available. So any foreshore property owner can check that system and open up that layer.
Yeah, and at the last meeting, we'd asked about having some overlap with those maps. Did you have any success with that?
I'm not sure if that was that wasn't captured in the table of edits. I'm not sure if there's consensus on what the request was.
I think it was more what is online, so that the mapping is available online and it would be difficult to put the layers into a paper form. Is my recollection.
Yeah, I believe we landed that the information would be available online for the public.
Yeah,
yes,
because it's more readily updated that way as well.
That's correct.
Sure. With a hyperlink nearby in the OCP.
It would all be through the new website.
Right. So there's sections in our OCP where we have links, like at a previous meeting when we were speaking about the treaties. We have a hyperlink within the OCP so that people can go in for more information should they require it. So could we not do the same thing?
I think that this OCP is going to be living on our website, and right next to the link for the OCP, we could have some pretty clear direction to our GIS mapping. It would be pretty apparent.
If I may, I also do have Chris Marshall with his hand up.
Mr. Marshall, then Pearson, then Haldane.
Yeah, I was just looking at the intent 7.4.1 of the DPA 3 foreshore area. says the intent of these guidelines is to protect and restore the ecological function and natural stability of Sooke's marine shorelines. And I'm just wondering if at that point in time, there could be some clarification that, you know, the responsibility of the province and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans ends at the high water mark, and, you know, it's the district that would then take on the administration or the protection of the shoreline beyond that. I'm just trying to figure out how to create that clarification.
So perhaps we can put that on the table then, like for 7.4.1 intent is to add clarity of what Mr. Marshall just said.
Which is where the authority of the province and the federal government ends and where the authority of the district lies.
Yeah. And then it'll be right up front there. That makes sense. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
The other piece, just to add to what Councillor McMath has raised on there's a diagram under shoreline protection. It's on page 186 of the red line version, sorry, not virgin. It shows the high water mark, and then it shows the 15 meter and the 15 meter. Is it, I may be digging in here, but would it make sense to add provincial federal jurisdiction? And then because here it's showing just a sample of what the high water mark is. And then the district, this could be made bigger, and then you could just add that to this diagram.
Well, all foreshore is crown land tenure, so you could just make a statement like that.
Okay, well, I was just looking at the diagram as a picture, but if it's in the intent and that's fine, this isn't needed. I liked it. I thought it was helpful. No?
It's a good idea. That in there, along with Mr. Marshall.
Because then it's in here. Then there's a diagram. Yes?
Yeah, it would require us to go back to our graphic designer, make a small change, but it shouldn't take that long.
You think that's okay? Just to add
I
it?
think I'd recommend using language instead, maybe referring to the high water mark or maybe even figure 17 just to make the process a bit more
Yeah,
simple.
that would be easier than just a point, refer to this. Okay.
Do that, okay.
Yep, leave it that way.
And apologies, I do have Chris Marshall's hand up.
Mr. Marshall?
Thank you.
Yeah, no, sorry, I forgot to put my hand down.
Okay. Okay, so we've added clarity under the intent. It'll point to the diagram. What else does council have in this section? Councillor Pearson? Oh, sorry, Miss Pearson, then Haldane.
Thank you. Okay, so looking at that diagram, the 15 meter, so both the province and the federal government have said that they end their responsibilities in their foreshore at the high water mark, and we're going to go 15 meters from where the federal government and the provincial government end. Is that the way I'm understanding that?
That's correct.
So this is, okay. So I guess now I'm starting to wonder about the intent of DPA number 3. If the government, both governments, both levels of government have said that's where they want to protect the shoreline to, why are we going beyond?
Because then the upland is our responsibility. They only we don't.
Or the landowners up.
Or the landowners, but our parks and whatever are.
I don't mind
are
that.
on there. That's where anything upland for local government jurisdiction begins.
Wow. Struggling with that.
That's been there since incorporation. It's 30 meters in other jurisdictions,
Yeah,
and we've already had that.
Not
debate.
alternating.
Huh?
No.
No.
No, it's 15 meter no build. It's not protection of environment or anything. Never was. But we're using it now for protection of environment. That's the problem. And then these landowners see it as a way to put trail systems through the property sometime in the future. And if you look at all of our parks on the other mapping, you'll show all the riparian areas all say district park now. So people are worried about that.
If I may, apologies, Chris Marshall again.
Okay, back to Mr. Marshall.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify, there's nobody in the federal provincial government saying that there's no environmental benefits to the area 15 meters beyond the high water mark. It's just that their jurisdiction ends at the high water mark. They don't have any authority or jurisdiction over the land beyond that high water mark. All the science will tell you that that's the most important buffer area along the shoreline for plants, animals, for drainage going from the developed areas into the water, just like the riparian areas next to creeks. Nobody seems to have an issue with protecting those, but for some reason, the ocean having a setback from a natural area adjacent to the ocean is a problem. I'm not quite understanding what people's resistance is.
Well, I think it's because of water quality. The water quality into streams and oceans is for salmon protection. The ocean itself, everything goes into the ocean from upland. The ocean doesn't change. The salinity changes very minutely. That's about it. So the whole idea here, upland or inland, is that you protect all those freshwater areas for salmon spawning and fish habitat. And realistically, if you look at it with even the riparian areas we've already done here in Sooke, we have trails going through them all. So who are we to say we're protecting it 15 meters? We don't want to upset the plant life and animal life. And then we put trail systems through the entire thing anyway. So we're not protecting it.
And they make the rules. Federal government and provincial government make the rules. They have full power to extend that if they wish, but it somehow, yeah, and they have it. And why?
Maybe they're concerned about overreach. Councillor Bateman.
Oh, I was just going to note on my walk along the boardwalk on Saturday, I had a good close look at that property just to the west. And the $2 million bill it cost. Yeah. So that was a destabilized slope. I think it was caused by a broken culvert along 14. And yet that's evidence of why protecting this particular 15-meter zone is critical. No?
Yes, Councillor
Yes,
St.
certainly
Pierre.
not now.
I'd suggest at this point, we have a lot of other DPAs to get through. And as it happens, the science is already in. We've had a 15-meter setback for a long time. We're not going to want to change that, likely, not tonight, probably not for a long time, maybe not ever. Can we figure out how to move on from here? Because
Okay, we'll move on. DPA 4, riparian area. Pretty straightforward. No? Yes? Anything from anyone on riparian area? Okay, otherwise moving to DPA steep slopes. DPA 6 town center. Okay, Councillor
I'll just
Bateman.
mention in the steep slopes, among other changes, 7.6.5 on page 192, guideline 6. There was comment from the building community vis-a-vis the wide variety of slope types, and this new revision does capture that variety, and that again, with the use of the word proportionate to the actual level of hazard and site sensitivity.
Okay, thank you. So DPA 6 into the town center. Not too much in here, sort of remaining as is, mostly some minor things. DPA 7 intensive residential. Go ahead in the town center, yes?
Previously, in another section, we had encourage, various environmental stuff. My understanding is we can't actually require density. But I'm not actually seeing language around encouraging additional levels, or did I just miss it? Is there some way to do that?
Can you clarify what you mean? Additional level stories?
Not just single story.
Mm.
Or we can encourage, building materials up to Straw Bale and Hemp Creek, but can we not have some language to encourage multi-story buildings? And maybe I just missed it. I know it says high density. I get that. And there's implied support for obviously, having higher density.
I think in a roundabout way, it does state that like the entire DPA itself is looking for that kind of mixed use type of environment. And if it's not consistent with the guidelines, that's reason to deny a proposal. So I think there could be an argument here if somebody wanted to propose well, I'm not sure, townhouse development. I guess that'd be ground oriented. We'd be looking for things like apartment or mixed use buildings in the town center, I think, at all times. Minus maybe the waterfront area where townhouses would be more supported, but there's a waterfront section in this DPA as well, where the density tapers to the west.
Okay, it had always been my understanding that it was difficult to actually require that of development, even including the town center, which is why we actually have that kind of development happening. So you're saying we actually have more latitude than I think, or more ability to encourage?
Yeah, I'd have to scan this section a little bit more, but I think that it basically is seeking to promote and encourage mixed use developments, apartment style development. So if you had a single family home was proposed in the town center, it would not be something that we would support necessarily. If it triggered I guess a 5-unit townhouse wouldn't be something we could potentially support in terms of the guidelines and being consistent with them.
Okay.
So in a roundabout way, yes, we encourage.
I'm just wondering if we want to be roundabout or blunt. But no, I'll leave it for the rest of council.
Well, there are single family units in the town center, and if someone suffered a total loss, they may not want to build a multi-story building on their lot. They may just want to rebuild their house. And they would need an OCP amendment to continue living where they live.
I don't even see a mention of, for example, density or wanting to actually have that density to promote local economic development or to make, development of pedestrian infrastructure. Like
This is your time to propose and edit.
Well,
That's what we're doing
I'm gonna
now.
look at the intent here specifically. And I don't want to kit bang bad language, but something along the lines of development that encourages density and a population density that will promote the development of pedestrian infrastructure and and supporting local businesses. Something that really talks about why it's good to actually have more people in the town center, because there's a lot of people that wonder. And I don't actually see that. I know it's part of our vision, but it's not explicit here. And I don't see it explicit anywhere. It's all implied. Anyway,
There's pretty strong linkage with our growth management and land use section.
I know.
Yeah.
But if I was reading this, I don't see it right in the intent. And it is our intent.
Can't help you there. I'm satisfied with what staff has come up with. I don't know. I think there's a separate policy piece where part of the action was to redoing a town center plan, which could then speak a bit more about what we actually want to do and how to incentivize it. I'm moving on into DPA 8, neighborhood commercial. Or I missed 7. I think I read that out. Or yeah, intensive residential is here. Not seeing any hands. Or Councillor Haldane, did you have your hand up for number 7? Go ahead, please.
7841 I or 1, I guess. It says reflect the natural context of character of Sooke through exterior cladding materials, wood, stone, and so on. But if you look through a bunch of them, the whole idea with building they're doing now, again, comes down to fire prevention, limiting distances that are in our other bylaws and stuff. So we kind of, it says use wood. Well, you can't use wood on most of these buildings because if they're within 1.2 meters of the next building, it catches fire. So you have to have a fire retardant material on the side of the house. So that conflicts with some of our building bylaw. It talks about materials, recommended materials, and then use of materials that is prohibited, you know, vinyl siding, faux finishes and stuff. But again, sometimes faux finishes are fireproof materials. So they use those because they can get away with that. We do it for softening. We do it for fascia boards, things like that. So I think the problem lies with something in a DPA like this. It should be materials of the day that they need to use in order to be able to meet some of the building bylaw standards or fire standards and stuff like that. I see it being prohibitive if you're going to start naming materials that they want or don't want based on looks, I guess. I mean, these buildings now are a lot more practical and built more practical because of things like fire and safety. So, and it talks about the use of windows on the neighboring side and so on. But, you know, I mean, we're limited in where we can put windows now in a house, and you're only allowed 17% exterior windows on an entire building or a house as it is residential. Apartment buildings are different, I guess. But I see this whole section as having all kinds of conflicts in it. So I don't know. I mean, do you eliminate the section, or, I mean, is this a DPA that's really that important?
Can I get some feedback from staff on this? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Beto.
Well, I don't see what's wrong with reflect the natural context, character of Sooke to exterior cladding materials and just leave it at that. And then it, you know, we know we have to meet the fire regulations, as you say. So I wouldn't want to exclude anything there. As a, I don't know. I agree. I don't particularly like, you know, some of the stuff that's in there, but the vinyl siding, we know we can't do that. But if you just leave it at that, reflect natural context and character of Sooke to exterior cladding materials, you don't know what's coming on the market next month.
No, and keep in mind that these prefab homes are going to have materials that are going to be afforded out. So they're going to be, it's going to be based on what the affordable materials are at the time. Vinyl might even be part of that too. So I don't like to say what we don't want to have on there, as long as the vinyl would fit in within the fire code and so on.
Yeah, well, I think if you leave it at the first part that reflect the natural context and character of Sooke through exterior cladding materials.
Okay, can I ask staff to comment? They might have put this in here for a reason.
Just a brief
We just need
comment.
to turn off some of the mics.
Oh. Just a brief comment here is what you'll see referenced quite often here is the West Coast character. I'm in these DPA guidelines, and part of that is that wood, stone, and metal siding. Potentially, maybe as a compromise, you could consider, council could consider, instead of prohibiting using that language, it could be discouraged. But it would be consistent with our previous guidelines and direction. And we also have a separate guideline document that does encourage these types of materials as well. Of course, guidelines are just guidelines. They're not regulatory. They're not regulations like building code, for example. So where these materials don't work for a specific reason, then we would certainly consider that in reviewing an application.
Okay, so change prohibited to discouraged. I have been asked by some developers out of town, when you say what is Sooke style, what do you mean by that? And I have to explain wood, metal. So if it's in there, it's something.
Yeah, yeah. I got a problem. I think that covers it. Problem.
So
Good compromise.
is discouraged.
Okay.
Prohibited is changed to discouraged. Is everyone okay with that?
So I guess my one big thing would be included in all of these DPAs. And it came up earlier. Can we have some sort of small little literature somewhere, either at the end of the entire thing or after each DPA? The council will be the arbitrary method to deal with anything.
But that's just typical land use. So if someone, as we know, like right now, they come to land use, if they're not, they can request to present to council at any time and have to wait for an availability with council. Right now, they're coming to land use, and I don't know that it needs to be in here. It's sort of,
It just gives them
you have a board of variance as a process, and if council feels that there's a problem out there, then we take it up with our CAO and we do a service level review to find out what the problem is. Putting that in an OCP on how decisions are made is interesting.
Well, just gives them comfort that they have somewhere to go if this isn't working out for them. And it realistically, it gives staff the ability to say, well, if you don't have an issue.
It's in the delegated authority bylaw. So we've had it where council has withdrawn all delegated ability and brought it all back towards council. The next council may choose to do that, or may want to push more authority to staff. So there is an avenue to do that outside of an OCP. Councillor St. Pierre.
I think the question is whether or not a mom and pop developer knows what that avenue is, and whether or not they just get freaked out instead. And
I think they are.
Yes, of course they are, because they don't actually know necessarily that they can come to us. But if that's actually stated clearly, you know, for example, right at the beginning of the DPAs, any issues with DPAs can be brought to council, boom, done. I mean, it doesn't have to be at each and every one, but if it's clearly stated, that's part of the process, that's it. But that means that the people that are not familiar with every bylaw we've ever produced actually know what they can just look at our OCP and understand.
I know, but there's also some people who don't want to come to council at all and would prefer just to deal with staff.
That's fine.
So
This is about clarity so that people who are scared know where they can go. That's all.
Well, I think.
that's interesting.
Doesn't change the OCP in one iota. It doesn't change the DPAs. It just clarifies what the process is if there's an issue.
A little bit of comfort, that's all.
Councillor Beddoes?
But isn't it accepted practice that if there's a dispute, then would staff say that the arbitrator is council? Would that would happen naturally? They would go there, we don't want them to come to us with every little thing. If they go to staff and they're at an impasse, then they say, okay, you either do it our way or you go to council. That's what happens now, isn't it?
They all seem to be able to locate the mayor and the email responsible.
I mean,
it's
a feel good thing by saying it's there, but I think it's pretty obvious that staff is going to be doing that anyways. It's not just a flat no. It's just, well, if you don't like your decision, this is your arbitration. This is where you can go.
Well, and this isn't for purchasing groceries or something. This is very specific to a official community plan where you wanted to do some sort of development, or even as Kevin would say, some small property owner just wanting to put in a garden or a pig pen and knock a tree down on their property. It just gives them some clarity and assurances, that's all.
But I think someone putting in a horse paddock in a barn would know to come and say, hey, this is what I'm looking to do, and have the resources and the wherewithal to be able to do those things. Exactly. So you would come into the district and you would start that conversation if you're putting in a paddock in a barn.
I think it's covered it.
Yes. It is covered by nature, by our very existence. Councillor St. Pierre?
I was wondering if it was possible to ask staff, it would be difficult to put some language to that effect, then maybe just vote on it. And I'm fine with however it goes, but.
Like that would be in sort of like the very first.
Yeah, right at the start, something simple.
I don't know. I think someone needs to come up with some language and think about, let's park that one and come back to it.
I'll second what Councillor St. Pierre says.
Doesn't, you don't need it, but he hasn't proposed where, what, or anything.
Okay, I'll figure that out.
So let's keep moving on.
If I may, apologies. Chris Marshall does have his hand up.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marshall.
Yeah, just to clarify, so even though I've been delegated the authority to approve certain development permits and certain development variance permits, as a staff person in dealing with the applicant, I would always, we as staff always make it clear what our stance is. Like if somebody comes in with something that doesn't meet our design guidelines, doesn't meet the criteria for that development permit, we would say, I'm not going to support this and I'm not going to sign off on this. They have the opportunity at that point in time to say, okay, I want to have the choice to take it to council, and that's their choice. The only reason it's going to me as a delegated authority is to improve the efficiency and speed at which development permits and variances get adopted. If they want to go the long route to council, that's their choice. If they don't believe that the staff person is telling the truth or is, fair in their judgment, that's always their prerogative to go to council.
Do you offer that to them, or do they have to, like, you
That
tell
is
them right
what-
up front when you deny
I
it?
obviously wouldn't offer it to them if I was supportive of the application, but if I'm not supportive of the application, and it's the same with the rezoning or an official community plan amendment, the applicant always has the option to carry on without staff support. That's always an option. But yes, if somebody came to me and wanted to push something through that I didn't support, then I would always give them the option, yes, I don't support it. I can't give you my blessing for this. But if you want to go to council, that's your choice.
So you offer it to them? is what you-
Yes.
It's pretty straightforward. So I just asked Google AI, I want to build a house. Where do I start? And it basically outlines here, check with your zoning, and determine where you're planning. It's all in here. Verify the land is properly zoned and you have access to utilities. Consult your local government if you don't know what that is.
Just ask it if
That's
it's
asking
build a
AI.
pig pen now.
Let's see these things.
Well, that's something that I think you need to know if you have intensive agricultural would be the start. It would be check with your zoning and see what the approvals are. And if you don't know what the zoning is, you would check with your local government. And if you don't know what that is, you know that you're paying your property tax somewhere. And maybe start there. I think it's pretty straightforward. I'm moving on to DPA 8, neighborhood commercial. Councillor St. Pierre, please turn off your microphone. DPA 9, employment lands. There's been no changes to these. 7.11, development approval information area. And then we're into the glossary. We've added land alteration to that, and there's a change to natural features. A few more edits. Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
So I'd like added to the glossary two terms, green shore principles to be added. Yeah. Which is referenced within the document. And also life cycle costs or whole building life cycle assessment. Because these are
To add green shore principles,
And-
that was referenced.
yeah.
And life cycle costs?
Yeah.
Or whole building life cycle assessments?
Yeah, those are two expressions that I saw.
Okay.
And I had a general question, and that is in terms of the actual process with the DPA, and we've seen a couple here at council, and the current 3 DPAs each have a checklist, and the exact verbatim language within the DPA is on that checklist. And there's a space for the applicant to explain how they're meeting or not meeting this particular requirement. And then there's a category for staff to respond accordingly. So you're looking, I'm curious to know about how this will look in action. So will there be a similar kind of checklist presented to applicants for each of these DPA? There's a single application?
Yeah, so currently through the mayor, we have new application forms. They do outline application requirements, and it's basically just a checkbox if they've been submitted or not. And then we would have our own internal way of reviewing those in accordance with our guidelines. So these forms would be updated once this OC, it's currently in process. We're working on these forms in the back end, assuming we adopt before the end of the year. So we can hit the ground running. But yeah, they would be looking at each guideline to confirm if they're consistent with them, if a DPA is required, so we can determine whether or not it's generally consistent with that DPA. So yeah, we'd be looking at updating forms like that. Yes.
And do you use a scorecard?
No, there's no scoring system.
No.
No, I wouldn't anticipate there being a scoring system. Again, maybe that's where a bit of discretion would come into play, depending on how many guidelines were being met and how many weren't. But something we could think about having a scoring system, but that's getting pretty granular, I think.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so we've reached the end of this. There's the table of changes in front of us. Maybe go ahead.
Well, I have Counselor McMath with her hand up. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Counselor McMath.
I was just gonna get to the motions.
Thank you. Okay. Can we just scroll this down a bit so we can see the whole table there? Because it's just showing the last few. Okay, can't see all of them, but okay. Counselor McMath, here we have that the committee of the whole recommend that council direct staff to incorporate the changes identified at the November 6th and November 10th, 2025 committee of the whole meetings as outlined in the summary of proposed edits into the draft official community plan bylaw number 800, 2022.
So moved.
Thank you. We're in committee of the whole. We don't need a seconder. Would you like to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Comments from anyone else? Okay, I'll call a question. All those in favor, please. You do have a comment. Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so in my comment, I would like to see us integrate the DPs together like we were talking about earlier. Megan McMath there talked about it, but more importantly, I would like to omit the DP3. If we're gonna do an overall push for this to be involved.
Okay, so that would be an amendment. So Councillor McMath has moved the edits. You're proposing an amendment to eliminate DPA 3.
Correct.
Okay, you don't require a seconder. Now you can speak to why you want to do that.
Well, because I think that's going to be the biggest pushback we're going to have. I mean, if we talk today about cohesiveness and trying to work some things out, negotiate, work as a team, get together. Well, I think at the public hearing that we are going to have, our number one biggest expectation from landowners will be to do something about DPA 3. If we want to look like we're trying to come to some sort of terms with this OCP and the fact that it's had some issues, but we're going to work together to push it through to the next level and make this thing pass. That would be one thing that I would ask. I think there's many, many landowners in Sooke here who would appreciate it, and it would put us in a better light rather than looking like we're pushing all of this stuff down, whether people like it or not. And it would probably eliminate a real big problem at the meeting, the public hearing. So
okay, so on the amendment, please. Anyone on the amendment? Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I think the whole idea here is we're going to go to a public hearing. And if there's a great hue and cry for the public hearing, then that's one thing. But I think I also, in my dealings with the OCP, is I understand it's contentious, but that was a pretty heavy supported area from the general public. So I'm not in favor of removing that.
Okay, others on the amendment? Counselor Pearson?
Yeah, I think that, you know, I'm not a fan of DPA in our entire community with, you know, 11 DPAs or whatever we have now. Nine solid ones, but you know, there's sub ones and it's complicated. It's too complex. We can't come in the back door to circumvent what the province has done. And I think some of that is this has got a lot of government overreach in it that I can't support in general. There's property owners who have been in Sooke for decades and decades and decades, and it's a slap in the face to property owners. It doesn't matter what category we want to put them in categories, but you know, removing DPAs out of here to soften the blow. Yeah, I agree with the motion or the amendment, but I don't agree with a lot of this DPAs in general. So anyway.
Okay, thank you. On the amendment, Counselor Bateman?
Yeah, I'll just quote a couple of, there's a lot of my favorite quotes from these staff reports, but here's one. DPAs are consistent and aligned with provincial and federal legislation while also, quote, responsive to the district's local environmental conditions and OCP objectives. And in reference to DPA 3, foreshore, it complements, not duplicates, federal, provincial, and district bylaws. So yeah, I think it does belong in the document.
Counselor St. Pierre?
I think at this point, we've made a lot of amendments that do improve the clarity. And I think that staff has been working with the development community to do the same for a long period of time. We can tell by the amount of red in the document. It's really time for the community to comment on it. And as Councillor Beddoes has pointed out, a lot of these DPAs are dearly held by various members of the community. So I think it's time for the members of the community to basically be in the same room, and the ones who don't want it can shout it out, and the ones who do want it can shout it out, and we'll have to sort it out. But I don't think we should be taking it out preemptively.
Okay, thank you. Counselor McMath, did you want to comment on the proposed amendment?
Nope, just want to call the question.
I'm going to call the question on the amendment, please. All those in favor of the amendment? Opposed is Counselor St. Pierre, Beddoes, Bateman, myself. Counselor McMath, are you in favor or opposed?
In favor.
In favor. Okay, so that carries on a 4-3. So now on the main motion then as amended, I'm going to call the question on the amended motion. All those in favor? We amended
I thought
the,
it failed, respectfully.
huh? The amendment was defeated. Okay, yes. We're back to the original motion. Okay, sorry, I'm not. Okay, thank you for the catch. So now the amendment fails, so we're back on the main motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Counselor Pearson is opposed. That carries. The next one is, and that the committee of the whole recommend that council consider giving second reading to official community plan bylaw number 800/2022 as amended.
I'll move it.
Moved by Counselor McMath. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Counselor Pearson and Haldane are opposed. I'm not hearing, so I'm assuming in favor. So now we're going to go to number 15, that we are now out, rising and reporting that the committee of the whole rise and report. I'll look for one mover. That's Counselor St. Pierre. All those in favor, please. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. And so now I'm going to, this is the recommendation. Now we're sitting as council, that council gives second reading to the official community plan bylaw number 800/2022 as amended to incorporate the changes identified at the November 6th and 10th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meetings as outlined in the summary of proposed edits and that council directs staff to schedule a public hearing for the community plan bylaw number 800 2022 as amended. Is there a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Beddoes. Would you like to speak to it?
Nope, I think it's high time we got to that public hearing. Thank you.
Councillor Beddoes.
Second.
It's calling the question. All those in favor, please. Any opposed? Councillor Pearson and Haldane are opposed, so that carries. Okay. So now we will go to council verbal reports.
I didn't have time, so I wasn't even thinking of that.
So I'll just share that tomorrow is Remembrance Day and that we have been invited to march with the Legion and the other participants. So if you are available, you are asked to wear your poppy and be at the Evergreen Center for 10 o'clock so that they can sort of organize everyone at that time with a planned march off at about 10:30 so that the ceremony can begin at the 11th hour and the 11th minute on the 11th day. I'll also share that to fly the poppy flag that was to kickstart the poppies and all of that, we did lower the Ukraine flag to fly the poppy flag. On November the 12th, the Ukraine flag will resume its post. We only have so many poles, so we may need to look at adding another one in the future, but that the Ukraine flag will be restored on November the 12th. And just briefly, I'll share that I was walking around town with the Golden Scissors recently to celebrate the expansion of an existing business at the Sea of Bloom and at the opening of the new Pizza Hut location. I will be bringing out my pickaxe when a date for the skate park groundbreaking is planned and underway, so stay tuned for that. And you may also see some pieces circulating about the Global Civility Summit. You may be familiar with Diane Kalin-Sukra. She has written and presented to council in years past. There is a civility summit leading through uncivil times that she will be hosting. I will be participating in that and have contributed in some ways, and more will come. So you may see that and one of my pictures circulating about that, depending on what news channel you follow. Other than that, is there any other items to share? Councillor Beddoes.
Oh God, this is the target. Fire service banquet, and there they installed 8 new paid on call, which should help alleviate some of the overtime requirements for staff. On Sea Park, we got the okay from the LC to go ahead and break ground. As the mayor said, we're going to have a little ceremony. I have an extra pick and shovel if somebody wants to come out when we have it. We can all be there. I think it's a very important part. We all went through the quarterly or financial report from Sea Park. They're on sound financial. We're on budget, on time, and revenue, and it's all been tracking, and they're in very good shape down there. So just an overall, it was a very positive report. So it was nice to see. They're very efficient down there. Very well done. Other things, but I can't.
Thank you.
And I did judge the Halloween costume. It's very, very tough, and I wasn't trying to suck up to the mayor, but the mayor had won the best costume. She came as a ninja warrior of some sort.
No, it's a demon slayer.
Well,
big difference.
Being that she had a sword and all I had was a club, I thought it's wise, and I had a couple of drinks out of my bottle, so I wasn't thinking straight anyways. So it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed seeing staff put the effort in. And matter of fact, there was the lousiest costume was won by our bylaw person who just happened to be walking by. And so we nailed him for the cheapest costume. So he was happy. It was fun. Yeah, good stuff.
Thank you for your work on that. And young people who were at my door, certainly on Halloween, recognized my costume.
Oh,
very, no, yes.
That's been great.
As a demon slayer. Thank you. 400 and some this year, down from previous years. But that's okay.
How many will whip and spit?
0 in whiff and spit. Oh, man. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. Okay. I will call for a motion to adjourn, please, by Counselor St. Pierre and Pearson. And the time being 9:30. Wow. All those in favor, please? And that's carried unanimously, or carried. Thank you.